Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. A show that today and every day is brought to you by our friends over at Les Schwab Tires. Tires, wheels, accessories, for whatever it is you drive, stop by your local Les Schwab. Tell the pros there OC sent you, and they will get the job done right the very first time. We have a fun show lined up for you today, as we always strive to do. Gordy Chiesa is going to stop by in half an hour, talk about the news from the association, and Dallas got some more bad news. We'll get to some of that. NHL trade deadline is approaching. We're going to spend some time on it today because Bill Armstrong had something really, really interesting to say that we didn't have time for it yesterday, but I actually wanted to express this sentiment myself on the show yesterday. And then the GM from your Utah Hockey Club said the same thing I was going to say yesterday. I'll tell you what that is when we get there. Reese Ross from Utah Women's Basketball going to swing by at 12:30. Isaac Shade, Locked On College Basketball, and the Locked On Tar Heels podcast to preview the upcoming conference tournaments, March Madness, etc. Red and Blue is later in the show today. Jerem Jordan's going to join us at 1:30 instead of at noon today because he has a real job that sometimes requires him to be occupied in other ways. So, fun show. Jam-packed. James Peterson on the other side of the glass today producing. By his own error, he didn't want to be here today, but he accidentally forgot to change the schedule, so now he's stuck with me for 3 hours. Ha! Gotcha, James.
I never want to be your OC. Joke's on you. No,
that's terrible. That's terrible to say.
No, if you're a regular listener to the show, first of all, we appreciate you. We appreciate your ears, but you've noticed in the last couple of months, Tuesdays has been a Zach Robinson day.
Because Tuesday you do a lot of your boss duties on Tuesday, your program director duties.
A lot of the meetings and other behind the scenes stuff that the boss needs to do. Happens on Tuesdays, but that's okay. Because last week Zach had a conflict on Tuesday, had to move it to Wednesday. I neglected to change that part of the schedule for this week. So
too bad.
Zach, so tomorrow's a Zach day on the board. Looking forward to that. But I'm here today. I'll make the best of it, OC, even though I really don't want to be here. I will make the best of it.
Too bad for you.
No, I'm excited for today's show, though. It's always good to have Gordy on the show. That would be our first guest here. I wonder if he has any insights on just how long a 9-game, 18-day homestand feels for players.
We finally found one thing that Gordy Chiesa has not experienced because that was the franchise longest. So Gordy, for once, doesn't have any more expertise than most people on this thing because it's never happened for the Utah Jazz before, a 9-game homestand. We will pick his brain about it one way or another. At Real OC Sports on Twitter is a great way for you to interact with me on the show. Love to hear from you on the text line as well, 877-353-0700. I have some poll questions up today, all right? NHL trade deadline is approaching, hits us on Friday. I know you're new to this. All right, I know that you just got into hockey. You're just playing the fantasy. You're just buying the gear. You're just doing the thing. That's fine. We're gonna learn it all together. We're gonna have fun with it together. You are now the Utah Hockey Club GM. You are. You're the Utah Hockey Club GM. What do you do before the NHL trade deadline? And the answers I provided that you can cast your vote upon on the old tweet machine. Do nothing. Keep the team intact. Trade for defensive help, which might not be as big of a pressing issue on the blue line right now because finally everyone's healthy. All the pairings that you thought you were going to have available to you are pretty much there for the Utah Hockey Club. Trade for a goalkeeper. You got Veggie, you got Ingram. Veggie has become your de facto starter. He's played his way into that role. Going back to the beginning of the season, first puck drop, and we thought it was going to be flipped. Veggie has outplayed Ingram.
Reed for a slam. Utah's put together really their first run.
Seeing Fontecchio out there, Fontecchio out there, three-point line. That time he just makes a point of getting to the rim.
Little click of the wrist and Filipowski. Paul Reed for a slam. Utah's put together really the first run of this game, 11-4.
That stretch, again, some of this related to injuries. There was that stretch where you just were not, you were controlling in the opponent's zone. You just were not getting shots on goal. You were not creating good chances. You were not scoring. Feels like Utah Hockey Club has kind of rounded out of that. Even though the most recent thing we saw was them 3-1 loss to the New Jersey Devils. The bulk of the last, I don't know, well, since the break certainly, but the bulk of the last 10 or 15 games feels like the scoring is coming. Feels like that kind of stay the course message that we've heard all year long is actually coming to fruition. And the most important thing to note here is that your Utah Hockey Club is in a playoff hunt, sincerely and firmly in a playoff race. Uphill climb, certainly in the West. Uphill climb because there's a bunch of folks. There's a bunch of other teams. You got Calgary. You got Vancouver. You got folks nipping at your heels. And, you know, the head-to-heads and the games in hand kind of a thing can make it more complicated for you. But you're within striking distance of a playoff appearance in the first year of existence as a Utah franchise. I've said it before. I will belabor this point. I will beat this horse to death, all right? And then beyond, I'll keep beating it. If you can make the playoffs in your first year as a Utah franchise, that is one of the greatest sports stories in the history of this state. It's a huge if at this point, but it's realistic. It could happen, okay? That's fascinating stuff. Trade deadline approaching. Tell me what you would do at Real OC Sports or 877-353-0700. It's especially fascinating, by the way, because the Jazz are deliberately stinking, and there's that whole dynamic of, like, do you want to keep supporting a team that is not going to be in the playoffs probably for 2 or 3 more years, or do you want to spend your time, your energy, and, yes, your money on supporting a team and buying tickets for a team and gear for a team and concessions at the games for a team that is, first of all, culturally fantastic, awesome, hardworking guys, love the sport, have embraced the community that has embraced them, but also are playing competitive hockey and are chasing a playoff spot. And next year will definitely be a playoff team, in my opinion. Anyway, what do you do with the Utah Hockey Club? That's one of the poll questions today. Another one is we're taking a look at the mock drafts that are coming out. NFL mock drafts. That's the season, all right? We're in that season right now. Scouting combine in the books, done with, finished. We talked about some risers and some fallers. We'll talk about a little bit more if we have time on the show today. The mock drafts, though, are coming out. You can find the 1-rounders. You can find the 2-rounders. You can find the 7-rounders. Right before we cracked the mic today, I was looking at the most recent one put out by ESPN, their 2-round mock draft, and they're going as far as trades, proposing trades. For example, this one, they've got the New York Giants trading up to number 1, taking the pick from Tennessee so that they can get Cam Ward. All right. Fantastic. This mock draft, and it is, of course, not gospel, but has 3 Big 12 players in the first round. The Big 12 Conference, which, of course, includes Utah football and BYU football, having 3 players in the first round, 2 of them from one team, the other one being Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona. So it's actually a Big 12 conference that in its first year, including those teams, is totally reliant potentially on those teams to give them any representation in the first round of the NFL draft. And I'm not delusional. I don't think that the Big 12 is going to keep pace with the SEC or keep pace with the Big 10 and the 14 players that Ohio State sent to the combine alone. I'm not delusional, all right? I'm not going to tell you, like, oh, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Utah, Arizona, they should be producing just as much NFL talent as Georgia and Florida and Texas A&M and LSU. That's never been the case. It's never going to be the case, especially since the SEC added Texas and Oklahoma, all right? And especially now that the Big Ten has become, at least for this year, the number 1 conference in college football. I'm looking, though, at a first round of an NFL draft, and maybe somebody else sneaks in there that just doesn't have Big 12 representation. And that is a recruiting issue going all the way down. It doesn't only affect this year. It doesn't only affect the departing juniors or seniors that are NFL draft eligible. It affects the entire culture of every team, every roster in the Big 12 Conference. So I asked the question as it pertains to Utah because it matters most for Utah, certainly to me and on this show. It's a quiet draft year for Utah football. We know that. That NFL draft pipeline has been a massively important recruiting tool for the Utes. And yes, there have been these years where it's just kind of like a coincidental thing. You don't have as many people matriculating on. In this case, it's affected by some of the transfers out of the program that you had. It's affected by injury, obviously. And so we look at it and we say, all right, this year is not going to be Utah's best year when it comes to producing NFL talent. And I'm not telling you to panic about that because I look at guys on the roster right now that are projected to be coming back and projected to be starters for Utah. And I'm like, yeah, those guys are going to be NFL players. I still think Lander Barton is definitively an NFL player. He's going to be a draft pick. This year, he could have been one this year if he had played better. He could have been one this year maybe if Karene Reed had stayed healthy and allowed him to maximize his own potential, Lander Barton's own potential, right? So there's guys all over this roster that are going to be NFL draft picks. Spencer Fano is going to be a first-round NFL draft pick if he stays healthy. So I'm not panicking about this year being a quiet year, but I am asking the question, how important is that reputation and that recruiting tool for Utah football in a new era of college football? Because that was a thing that separated you in the past. That was a thing that made people choose you in the past, especially at certain positions, defensive line, defensive back. You were going to go into somebody's living room and you were going to say, hey, man, we will get you to the NFL. More recently, you've produced a couple of tight ends that have gone there. You've produced a couple of linebackers that have gone there. If you're a safety, a corner, if you're a defensive lineman, and Utah comes to your living room and says, I will turn your son, I will turn you, young man, from a 3-star recruit or a 2.5-star recruit into an NFL football player. How do you know that? Because I did it with this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. And you were able to start doing that with linebackers, as I said, able to start doing that with tight ends, as I said. You haven't really done it successfully with wide receivers at a consistent clip, except, well, I shouldn't say that because Tim Patrick's had a great career. Devon Vele is now having a great career or starting a great career.
Yeah, it seems like it's not that you haven't been able to develop receivers. It's that they develop better or maybe they're utilized better on the NFL level than they are at Utah.
It's like
Steve, even going back to Steve Smith, he was a great returner at Utah. He was seen as a great returner coming out of college. He ended up being should be a Hall of Fame wide receiver in the NFL.
So that used to be a thing that Utah leaned into and relied upon incredibly well. They over-indexed. They relied heavily upon that because the evidence was there. And there was a time, by the way, it's no longer true, but there was a time, I think it was about 2015, that Utah did it better than anybody in all of college football. Like the metric was there, draft picks related to recruiting class rankings. Utah produced more draft picks. They overperformed their draft or their recruiting class expectation in the NFL draft more than any other program. And it's still the same guys. It's still the same guys coaching, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So the poll question is, how important is that thing that you used to desperately cling to? And that sounds wrong. It sounds, I'm putting a negative connotation on it, but that you used to like pound your chest about. We will do more for you in draft preparation than pretty much any other school. And certainly most of the schools that you were competing with for recruits. Is it more important than it ever was? Is it equally important now to how it always was? Is it less important somehow than before? Or is it all about NIL money now? Because here's my concern, right? It's still true that if Morgan Scalley sits down with your son, and your son is a corner, a safety, a linebacker, a defensive lineman, a defensive end, it's still true that Morgan Scalley can factually sit down and say, I will get more out of your kid at the college level, and I will get more out of him when it comes to the NFL draft than anybody else who's recruiting you right now. I still believe that about Morgan Scalley. I still believe that about Kyle Whittingham. I believe that about Doug Alisaya. I believe that about the Utah football program. I'm just talking about the defense specifically right now for the sake of the conversation. I still believe that they can sit there and say, you believe, like I believe, that your son is under-recruited right now. We're going to turn him into an NFL draft pick. And more importantly, we're going to teach him over the next 3 or 4 years what it's like to be a professional before he turns professional. The expectation, the extra work, the film study, the accountability to his teammates, to the community that he lives in, to the university itself. We're going to provide this foundation for your son so that when he does go to the NFL, teams are like, wow, this guy is exactly what we thought or exactly what we needed.
That's always been on the defensive side, especially the secret sauce, right? The reason why they've been able to get more out of the 2 and 3 star guys, the guys who didn't get any stars in recruiting coming out of high school from 24/7 or Rivals or what have you. It's always they've been able to Morgan Scalley, Kyle Whittingham, Sharif Shaw, everyone else on that defensive staff that's been there a long time. They've been able to take what they learned as players in the pros or being able to rub shoulders with coaches in the pros and apply it at Utah better than almost anywhere else in the country.
Seriously, and at one point, statistically, factually, better than anyone else in the country, but still a top 10 in all those metrics, in overperforming recruiting class rankings and turning them into draft class rankings. Utah is still way up there in that regard. So that recruiting pitch is still intact. But I don't know, legitimately, I don't know, and I'm asking you as a listener, 877-353-0700 or at Real OC Sports, does that matter like it used to? If you're a parent, are you listening to that and saying, awesome, you're going to turn my 6'5", 250-pound puppy of a son into a 300-pound monster grizzly bear D tackle, and he's going to get an 8-year-plus run in the NFL because of the foundation that you help lay. I love that. Or is it now, I fully expect you to do that, and also we need $1 million for him? Has the NIL thing overshadowed the other things that you provide as a coaching staff and professional preparation, or better way to say that is the preparation for a professional career provided? Wait, James just whispered in my ear. We have some. Is this breaking news? Do we want to categorize this as breaking news?
Yeah, we're gonna we potentially have some breaking news. I think let's take the first few minutes of next segment before we introduce Gordy to talk about it. So we don't have to break right now, but maybe in the next minute or two.
No, we're gonna break right now because now I am just like,
let's do it.
What are we doing here?
Yeah.
So somebody just walked into the studio. I couldn't see because of the glare who it was. James.
We've got sources confirming some significant information about a certain head coaching job that means a lot to the listeners of this station.
Wait, is it a local head coaching job?
A certain head coaching job. We're gonna play some of it close to the vest till we got the art of the tease, OC.
Okay, so infer what you will from this, but it sounds like we're getting some significant news about an open head coaching position that is particularly relevant to listeners on the station that happens to be the home of the Utes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good way to put it.
I like that.
And we've got Gordy coming at 11:30. I think this is something that we want to take a few minutes on before we introduce Gordy. And Gordy will have some thoughts on it, too.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Great. Before we get to the break, I want to welcome Top Local Roofing to the show as well. Do me a favor. Walk outside your front door, your back door, whatever. Get that angle that you need. Walk as far away from your house as you need to. Turn around and just take a look at the roof, okay? Are the shingles looking a little bit tattered? Are you seeing that a lot of that texture is starting to wash down into the gutters? Did a couple of shingles fall off? Are your gutters hanging? How does that roof look? If you need a new roof or maybe just some patching, some roofing repairs, Justin Cunningham at Top Local Roofing is your guy. Certified Better Business Bureau provider. They work all along the Wasatch Front. Top Local Roofing. The phone number is 801-839-4501. And I have it on good authority that Justin Cunningham, not only a great roofer, pretty tough guy. Pretty tough out in the gym if you're talking about grappling. So maybe you can convince him to come give you a bid on a new roof. Try to take him down in the front lawn. See if you can get behind him for a choke and get into a little jiu-jitsu match with him. Justin Cunningham at Top Local Roofing, 801-839-4501. We'll get into the mysterious, potentially breaking news that James won't even tell me, top secret in my headphones, next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 792.1 FM. A furious rush of information coming in to James, and then I got on the little horn here. We did some texting back and forth. We got some sources, #sources involved, and I think we're ready, James. Hit that sounder. Multiple sources indicating to us here at ESPN 700, your home of the Utes, longtime NBA assistant, Utah basketball legend, Alex Jensen coming home to take the head coaching position for Utah men's basketball. Big if true, baby. I'm trusting the sources I'm getting. No official release from the athletic department as yet. Not sure if the ink is dry on the paper as yet. But this thing appears to have been pushed across the finish line, maybe even as recent as the last couple of hours. Alex Jensen coming back home to coach his alma mater. Huge for a lot of reasons. Could be massive for not only the men's basketball program, for Mark Harlan personally. This was who the boosters wanted. This is who the fans wanted. All sources indicating that you got your man. We're lucky enough, Spence Checketts, who hosts The Drive and joins us for Crosstalk at the end of my show every single day, happens to be in studio recording some stuff, and so I pulled him in so we could talk about it. Spence, you're comfortable with me taking extra time out of your day?
Oh, of course, and credit to you and your sources for breaking this news. That's great that you were able to get that. I think it was John Rothstein who reported about 3 hours ago that, and I'll just read John's tweet, Dallas Mavericks assistant Alex Jensen has emerged as the primary candidate for a head coaching vacancy at Utah. No offer has been made yet, but he's at the top of the list to replace Craig Smith. Played under Rick Majerus and was an assistant with the University of Utah. Now, with your sourcing, we can announce that this looks like this is going to land. Now, of course, we'll wait for the release from the university, and we'll do all those things that we need to do to be good partners. I think this is a dynamite move. I think this is the right call. Now, 5 years ago when Mark fired Larry Kraskowiak, I wasn't sure that this would be possible because I thought Alex would get a head coaching job. I've heard it from two different sources that he is in the last year of his deal with the Dallas Mavericks, so he does not have a contract next year. I don't know how much that played into this. And I have to wonder if Alex just, after so long as an assistant in the NBA, just thought, okay, if I'm ever going to get a head coaching job, it might have to be in college. And what better place to do it than here? This is a dynamite move. This is a good hire. I mean, Kevin Young, every time he's asked, will tell you that he coached Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and Chris Paul. Alex Jensen can say Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and he could keep going. This feels like a move that is the right one to make to modernize the approach of Utah basketball.
I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind, for pretty obvious reasons, some of those that you just laid out, that Alex is the right move for Utah. Maybe the more significant thing for me here is if he's taking this job, and sources indicating that that is the case, the harder thing to convince people of, that Utah was the right move for Alex. That when you have potentially, when you have such a strong reputation in the NBA, maybe he wasn't going to get a head coaching job in the NBA next season, but he absolutely would land somewhere on a staff as a lead assistant, as a player development specialist, as someone who can help work some of the big men, whatever. And he could have a career in NBA basketball.
For sure. It's a good point, yeah.
And when that is a possibility for you, it's not a no-brainer to go back to a rebuild at your alma mater, where you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And certainly in a time where the questions were bouncing around, is this program going to be able to support the recruiting needs, NIL-wise, of an expected top 25 team, an expected tournament team every single year? Is this now football school? It wasn't a football school when Alex Jensen played there.
Right.
Is this now football school going to offer this man, who is a highly sought-after coach in a lot of different places, maybe not necessarily on the head coaching front on the basketball side or on the NBA side, I should say, but a guy who's well-respected in every industry he's ever touched, are you going to give him the necessary resources to support what is maybe an unrealistic expectation at this exact moment. And if he's taking the job, that tells me the answer to those things is yes, that this program has convinced a guy who has options that, yeah, we will support you, that the NIL money is going to be there, that there are boosters ready to write those checks, that the facility, which is already fantastic, is going to be maintained and upgraded if necessary. This has always been a no-brainer for Utah to want Alex Jensen. It was less of a no-brainer for Alex Jensen to want the Utah job. If he's taking it, they had to check a lot of boxes.
It's a really good point because, to your point, I can promise that Alex was not in need. Alex wasn't on a street corner saying, we'll coach for food, right? He was not in need of a job. And as I've said, since we broke the news last Monday that Craig had been let go, whether it's Alex Jensen, Andre Miller, or the ghost of Rick Majerus, or Richard Pitino, or Brad Stevens, or Pat Riley, no matter who the candidate was, they were always going to sit across from Mark and probably Taylor Randall and say, what are the economics of your program? Financially, what's the infrastructure? Are we set up to succeed, and can we pay these players? You referenced the facilities. They're already great. They do have to be kept up. The one thing is, what can you pay my talent? What can you pay my players? Because if we cannot keep up with the school 40 miles down south or other Big 12 cohorts, Arizona, Houston, massive budgets to pay future pros. If we can't keep up financially, I have no interest in taking this job. Because if you can't, you are set up to fail. You are hired to be fired. And my guess is Alex asked for a pretty lofty financial commitment because he was making good money as a professional assistant coach. And so, to your point, all of those boxes had to be checked. They're probably paying him a good amount of money. And this should be met by Ute fans as very good news because, as you outlined, this should indicate that the financial and economic infrastructure with the program is sound and good enough for a highly sought-after, highly respected pro coach to leave the pro ranks, leave flying five-star hotels in the sky while eating caviar to come back down to the college ranks. It's a good point. This news should be met with tremendous positivity across the market.
I mean, it indicates not only good things for Utah basketball, but for the athletic department in general, because that's what it takes now. It takes that for women's basketball, for softball. I just read an article yesterday about Oklahoma women's softball. Of course, they don't have men's softball. Oklahoma softball is a bigger ticket draw and a bigger revenue producer for Oklahoma than men's and women's basketball down there combined.
Wow.
And yet that program still operates at a deficit. So what you need from your athletic department is you need what you're just talking about, financial commitment and a philosophical commitment to say, we will do what it takes. We will make the sacrifices up here. We will do what we have to provide you a platform for success. Mark Harlan knows exactly what that looks like. Taylor Randall knows exactly what that looks like. They're hearing constantly from the football team and from Kyle Whittingham, hey, this is what I need. There are 12 or 15 or 25 different hands reaching out for more from your boosters and your NIL collective and all that kind of stuff. And at some point, if you have to just say, sorry, guys, I don't have it for you, then you're not going to be able to make this hire.
Right.
You're not going to be able to convince Alex Jensen to leave the NBA, to say, I'm no longer interested in coaching Kyrie Irving.
Right.
Or ending up wherever and coaching the best players in the world. The NBA is the pinnacle of the basketball world, and that will never not be true.
Right.
So to leave it, you have to be given a compelling reason to leave it. And yes, there's always the allure of home. There's always the potential to return to a place you're already pretty legendary and become even more of a legend. But the flip side of that coin, and we've seen it play out for years and years in all these other sports, is that, like, if it doesn't work out, if you are set up to fail, then your legacy becomes complicated and gets tarnished in some way. And ultimately it comes out in the wash. There's no BYU fan that hates Ty Detmer because his run as a BYU assistant wasn't great. But it's not the same as it was before he went and put his fingerprints on something that ultimately was not set up for him to succeed.
Right.
So this is big for me on the Alex Jensen front, certainly, but on the Utah athletic front in a larger way.
No, I think it's a really good point because there are probably a lot of sports radio listeners that simply have not been dialed into the college basketball program for a while because they love the football program. And so the way you're approaching this topically is smart. If you're a fan of Utah athletics, period, today's a good day. The news should be met with positivity. Now we'll see what the staff looks like. We'll see who he fills his bench with because what I can tell you about Alex, he doesn't have the Jim Boylan enthusiasm. I don't think you're going to see Alex at football games with pom-poms. He's a quiet guy. Now, he's a smart guy. Don't mistake his quiet nature for anything other than just he's a really introspective person. But he's not one of those rah-rah, even like Craig was. Craig was a very energetic dude, and you'll have the opportunity to interview Alex, I would imagine. He doesn't love doing media. One of the reasons he fit in with that Jazz front office / coaching staff is he never said a damn thing. But don't mistake his quiet nature for anything other than he's just introspective. He's a really smart basketball mind. He's a really good coach. But how does he do with a front-facing? You know what? He's a little bit like Coach Witt, to be honest with you. I don't think Kyle loves the front-facing nature of being a head college football coach. You just do what you have to do as part of the job. So, for Ute fans that don't really know Alex much, maybe younger Ute fans, don't expect him to come for a press conference situation and blow you away with his energy, because that's just not who he is. But don't mistake that for anything other than him being introspective. He's a very smart basketball mind. This is a good hire.
We've seen plenty of individuals, plenty of coaches across the sporting spectrum who can win that press conference and are these charismatic speakers and win over the media, right? And they just don't have what it takes now to succeed in the competitive world or whatever. And we've seen plenty of guys who are terrible at the press conference stuff and are awful in the charisma factor and are a pain to work with, quite frankly, in sports media. But what do? They just go out there and they win.
Nick Sirianni's intro press, I'm like, does he speak English? Is this guy good? Is he all right? And they just won the Super Bowl. Good point, yeah.
It's a less while I wish everyone could have both because it makes my job easier.
Sure.
It's far less important that this individual, that Alex Jensen, goes out there and shows everyone how cool he is and how easy he is to get along with. What you need to do is you need to win. You need to get this team back to the tournament consistently.
Yep. And you got to get building, too. I mean, you got to get building. You got to do it right away. You have to wonder if the timing of this whole thing, as far as firing Craig, indicated Mark knew that he could get Alex pretty quickly. You feel a little bit bad for Josh Schuyler, interim head coach. I don't know that he was ever a candidate anyway. I mean, hell, they got a game tonight, right? And so, we'll wait, of course, to see what the details are and get the official release from the school. I don't know where they are in the process. I'm not sure if your sourcing would indicate where we're at in that direction. But, this really is the deal, and I have no reason to believe it's not. I just think it's a really exciting thing for Utah fans.
Now get me Andre Miller.
There we go.
Andre Miller on line one. James, get him on the phone. I will get this Andre Miller deal across the finish line.
I do have to credit two people who came on my show. I'm sure you have credit as well. Josh Grant, Tony Jones, the day Craig was fired, they both said this job should be Alex Jensen's.
And that was Josh and many other people indicated it both publicly and behind the scenes that was the direction the athletic department wanted to go in. And you have to remember, because there are so many cooks in the kitchen now with boosters and people who have influence in the athletic department, it's not easy to get kind of a unilateral effort.
Right.
For any coaching hire.
Yeah.
Right? There's always going to be, we like Alex Jensen, but what I want is you got to find me the Kevin Young equivalent. And by the way, I'm going to be your Ryan Smith in this case if you hire the guy that I want. Everything that I heard was that it was a pretty unanimous level of support for Alex Jensen to be the next guy, from all the folks that write the checks, all the people that sign the checks, all the people that are officially employed by the university, and to go out there and to get your man. That's not as easy as it used to be in college sports.
For sure. And I wonder, and I'm sure at some point one of us will have a chance to interview Mark about this, if Mark listened a little bit more to folks around him about the direction he should take here, juxtaposed to what happened 5 years ago. I'm not saying Craig was the wrong hire. I still believe Craig Smith, who is a young man, has a lot of coaching in his future. And I didn't hate the hire when it came down. Obviously, it just didn't work out for a myriad of reasons. But this is an important hire for Mark Harlan. Because as of now, Mark Harlan, as the athletic director at the University of Utah, has made 2 hires for his revenue generators. One was Craig, didn't work. Now it's Alex. Let's see. Because obviously Coach Witt was in place. The succession plan for Morgan was already decided. So I'm sure, look, Mark's a smart guy. I know he's taken a lot of heat. The press conference after the BYU game was not a good look. I know a lot of people in the community are kind of like, is this really the dude? So I'm sure Mark, being a smart guy, took his time and thought through it and made sure that this is exactly what he wanted to do, because I think this is a big day for Mark Harlan, and how it manifests will tell a lot about him.
We will await the official release from the University of Utah. But again, if you're just tuning in, multiple sources telling ESPN 700 that former longtime NBA assistant Alex Jensen is coming home to take the head coaching job at Utah men's basketball. Woo, baby!
Nice work, Sean.
Let's go! This is exciting. This is a wonderful day for Utah men's basketball. We'll take a break here. Gordy Chiesa is ready for us. We're going to talk with Gordy. He knows Alex. We'll get his thoughts on this breaking news. It's the Sean O'Connell Show. Thanks, Spence. You're still going to do crosstalk, right?
Oh, yeah. I'll be back just in a couple of hours. You're not getting rid of me.
Okay. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network.
Seeing Fontecchio out there, the three-point line. That time he just makes a point of getting to the rim.
Little flick of the wrist, and Filipowski.
Kyle Filipowski three-pointer from a Jazz loss to the Detroit Pistons. 25 points for Kyle Filipowski, and that one a career high. Sound courtesy of Smith Entertainment Group Media. Craig Bolerjack, Thurl Bailey on the call. Gordy Chiesa, our resident basketball insider and expert, is kind enough to join us. Gordy, we got to you 15 minutes late, and I'm sorry about that, but my hashtag sources gave us some big news. We had to run with it. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing fine, absolutely. That's Alex Jensen. And with Alex Jensen, I know very well professionally and personally. He'll be very impactful in Utes basketball. You and I mentioned this last week as far as the new coach, meaning now Alex Jensen. He has to be able to recruit in the portal, and that's based on street cred. And so now with the Utes hiring Alex Jensen, they right away counter BYU, who hired Kevin Young. So who would have thought this, that both coaches that lead their respective universities are former NBA assistant coaches? And so Alex Jensen, what's his vision? And I would say that I'm sure he's thinking about as far as how he liked to play. I'm sure he's going to try to play much faster, which is an NBA type of thing, and that he has to connect the fan base. That there's been absolutely a disconnect recently the last few years, so he'll energize them. Now, winning certainly helps, and so it comes down to what? Getting players via portal now in this generation and probably going overseas to get some of the big guys they need to win. And I think his ability to recruit and do that. Plus, the last point about Alex is that he's really a tremendous teacher. He got some toughness and edginess. And in this generation of coaches and in a landscape, you have to be fair-minded but still tough. And that's Alex Jensen.
Gordy, in your mind, what's the biggest challenge in transitioning from being an NBA coach to a college basketball coach? Of course, the college game has gotten a lot more professional, and you're going to have effectively a salary cap for your roster and things like that. But going from the NBA as an assistant to a college head coach, what is the biggest hurdle to get over for Alex Jensen?
Re-understanding now the immaturity of the players. These kids are so young. Now they're probably 17, 18, 19, and the old guy's 21 now. And so in the NBA, there's a lot of young people, but a team like the Mavericks or a veteran team, you're dealing with people that have families and children. So you have to redocument yourself as far as these guys are younger. So just generally speaking, when you're around younger people, less is better. So less as far as giving them things to do on the court. Just try to perfect the 3 or 4 things that are the base philosophy of what you have, meaning what? Defense and offense. And that's what Alex will do. So the players are younger, usually immature, and the last point about that is that their body's not developed yet at all. And so you have to get these guys to be able to be physical with their bodies eventually getting stronger.
Gordy Chiesa, our resident NBA and just basketball insider overall, with some thoughts on the breaking news that Alex Jensen is expected to take the Utah head coaching job, returning to his alma mater. Fingers crossed that since we broke the news that's how it plays out. All right, let's talk a little NBA, Gordy. Utah Jazz in action again last night. Big game for Kyle Filipowski. And we're seeing this, like each of these young guys for the Utah Jazz at some point seems to be kind of taking their turn and having their breakout game. We've seen some great things from Walker Kessler and Filipowski. This is not the first time he's been scratching at a big-time game, but even in a loss, very impressive from the young man.
Yeah, absolutely. So he gets 25 points last night, goes 4 for 7 from threes, and 8 rebounds where he mixed it up. So he'd be, again, an example where he's willing but not able yet as far as physicality. So his body is underdeveloped like all young guys are. Let me preface this. And so as he gets stronger, very similar to Walker Kessler from year number 1 to year number 3 now, is that he battled in the lane, and Detroit's a very good team. They're tired of losing the Pistons, and now the Pistons right now are going to probably make the playoffs. Their record is 35-27, so they're 6th seed. So Filipowski did a good job against the Pistons' big guys in the lane where he's battling. He has a dimensional also where he's an outside shooter. So as he goes forward, his jump shot should be there as far as range shooting, and then also taking the ball to the basket and absorbing contact and finishing through physicality. So I like him. Again, when the Jazz picked him, Sean, at number 32 in the draft, it's really a value pick.
Big news around the association also. Kyrie Irving, season-ending knee injury. The bad luck continues for Dallas, who I guess cursed themselves with the Luka trade.
Well, here's Dallas. Since Christmas Day, where we celebrated all our families, and the Mavs had a great Christmas Day in their franchise history so far. Derek Lively out indefinitely. They traded Luka. Daniel Gafford out indefinitely. Anthony Davis they traded for out indefinitely, and Kyrie Irving now with a torn left knee ACL. So that happened since this Christmas to the Dallas Mavericks. Let's not forget, last year they lost in the NBA Finals to the Celtics 4-1. So in their war room last July and August, they're saying that we could be champions this year in the NBA with a high level of experience of the postseason last year. We keep our team together. We add one or two other contributors. We're going to be terrific this 24-25 campaign. And guess what happened? They're probably not heading at all to even the play-in tournament. That's how fragile the NBA is. There's injuries, and then there's franchise injuries. And this is a franchise injury besides with Luka, where Luka going to the Lakers has shook the whole NBA landscape.
I know that a torn ACL is not the career ender that it was 30 years ago. You know, recovery techniques, surgical techniques, everything's really good right now. Kyrie's not young anymore, though. He's not old yet, but he's not young anymore. What does this mean for his career long term?
Well, the first thing, just generally speaking, is that when you have a torn ACL and with the rehab as far as the intensity of it, it takes roughly 10 to 12 months to heal, just give or take, based on the severity of it, your age, your own age, your diligence as far as getting your knee back as far as in shape. So just say that the best scenario would be he's not playing till next January 15th. So today's March 4th. I'm saying January 15th. So they're going to start the season next year without Kyrie Irving. Add to that he has a player option for the 25-26 season at $43.9 million, which he will definitely opt in, but before June 30th of this year. So think about the Mavericks now. They're going to have a guy making basically $44 million on your payroll and can't play until the middle of January. So in their world, it's devastating. What it means to him right now is that he's going to stay put in rehab as almost like a full-time job as far as getting better, then reassess his career.
Gordy Chiesa for a few more minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Lots going on in the basketball world. Utah men's basketball expected to announce shortly that Alex Jensen is returning home to take the head coaching job. Kyrie Irving out for the rest of the year and a lot of next year with a torn ACL. Utah Jazz continuing their somewhat successful tank right now. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Lakers, Sean.
Oh, go ahead. What about
Lakers too?
What do you want to talk about with the Lakers?
Oh, the Lakers also. Oh, Lakers, Sean. Just think about it. There's so many fans here as far as with the Lakers living from SoCal in this area. So since Luka's been there, the record's been 6-2. And so the Lakers, remember when the doomsayers thought the Lakers, those guys are done, and LeBron and the fellas didn't cooperate. As we speak right now, they're the second seed. So Luka gave them what they needed, unbelievable. And he's not shooting straight still yet. So he's only shooting from the field 39.2. But he's averaging 22 points a game, 8.3 rebounds, 6.8 assists, and 1.8 steals. But the biggest factor is that he gives LeBron, during the game, a mental health break. So instead of LeBron making every play for his team as far as scoring, rebounding, bust-out dribbling, getting everybody involved, now it's Luka getting him involved. And that's been an incredible thing for them. They're playing as far as in lockstep, and that allows each guy to not alternate with the ball, but when someone's got it rolling, they can take over a game and give the other guy a chance to regroup physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Is LeBron still a top 5 player in the NBA?
Top 10?
Okay.
At age 40, he's averaging 24.8 points per game, 8 rebounds, 8.6 assists, and everyone's trying to stop him. Can you imagine that you're the focal point your whole life as people in an NBA game where they're trying to stop you and do damage to you as far as physicality? And that's what makes LeBron, we've never seen a guy like this to play at that elite level of all the time. You mentioned before, is LeBron still a top 5 player? Here's the top 5 players in the NBA: Nikola Jokic, Jason Tatum, Giannis, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and then I'm saying Luka. No disrespect to LeBron, But LeBron's in that second group, though. Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant, all those guys, he's in that second group as far as top 10, which is absolutely incredible.
The reason I asked that question, because, I mean, two guys on the same team that are top 5 players, I don't know how many times we've seen that in the NBA. Two guys that are top 10 players, still prohibitively rare. Because, yes, there's plenty of times where 2 all-stars are on the same team. But two guys that can be the number one option, can be a franchise tentpole on the same roster, helping one another out. It's happened in NBA history, but it doesn't happen that often, Gordy, and we're seeing it again with the Lakers, as we've talked about. It's frustrating for non-Laker fans. The NBA probably loves it, but the fact that you've got a 40-year-old LeBron still playing at that level and now a 25-year-old Luka ready to take that over, I just can't get over that as a story.
Very much. Add to that. The last time it happened would be with Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, where 2 top 5 players in the NBA were together. And you can debate that then later on. How about Bird? How about Mikal? Okay, fair debate. And in yesteryear, it would have been Oscar Robertson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in yesteryear, back in the early 70s, when Oscar played with Kareem in Milwaukee. And then later on, now he played with Magic in L.A. during Showtime. So it's very rare when you have, and more importantly, can those guys play as far as a unit? And those players do, though. So Luka Doncic, he's an incredible player. That he's fearless. In playoff games, that's what you need. You need somebody, no matter what happens, if your team doesn't shoot straight during the game, he can get you back-to-back threes to ignite the rest of his floor mates to win by 1 on the road. He can score 45 in a playoff game to win by 1 to help LeBron out.
SGA hung 51 points on Houston. That's the 4th time he scored 50 or more. Is he going to be the MVP?
Yes. Yes, he's the MVP this year. And a close second is obviously the Denver Nuggets with Nikola Jokic. So he should win it this year. And Jokic should finish a very close second. And both of them are absolutely spectacular players. They lead their franchises. They're pass happy. They're ultra talented, and they really understand how to get everybody involved. But this is a year for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Let's not forget that he was traded by the Clippers. So even though they're the model franchise, the Thunder, their star player wasn't homegrown. It was 1 year in the Clippers traded. That was the Paul George trade, where the Thunder traded Paul George to the L.A. Clippers, and the Clippers sent back young Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which has worked out tremendous for the Thunder.
It's probably a stupid question to ask because of the year he's having, but how long does his game translate? He attacks the paint, Gordy. He's willing to go in there, take fouls, get points at the free throw line. And I know he's young, but how sustainable is his style of play in the modern NBA?
As the years go on, very similar to Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, you'll adjust that you just can't keep driving to the basket and creating contact all the time. So you alter that, you make a slight alteration, and that would be some of the time. And so he'll learn that. Right now, he's still top of his game. So when you're around, usually speaking, give or take a year, you're like 32, 33 years old, you're still top of your game. You go less airborne and stay more grounded. And that prolongs your career, and it helps just as important also, it helps your franchise. Because you just can't keep absorbing. Remember now, your body's not that big. So when you fall to the ground at 185, 190 pounds, it's different than being like 260. Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies is learning that the hard way also, where you go airborne all the time to showcase your legs, but when you come crashing down to the floor, you have a lot of injuries. So Ja Morant would be a class example also, where he has to learn how to adjust his game as the years go on.
Gordy, what's your list today?
All right, Sean, last Sunday, the Oscars show. So So this is my annual list of Oscars, but it's basketball.
Okay, Gordy.
Selection and I'm sorry.
Before you start your list, how many of the 10 Best Picture nominees had you seen this year?
There's the one with Bob Dylan.
Okay.
No, the answer is no.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because we James and I talked about that yesterday. 10 Best Picture nominees. We'd only seen 2 of them, and you've only seen 1. So we're coming up short in our film study.
I'm a movie buff, so it's not a question about I'm into a movie. I do, just that we're in season, so in the spring and summertime, I'm always out there. And my favorite go-to thing in a movie theater is Junior Mints, in case you're wondering.
Okay. All right. You've lost me there.
It's a top 10 selection of basketball movies, just top 10, only basketball, not all sports. I'll go through this quickly. Excuse me. Let's do right now. Number 10, Space Jams, Michael Jordan, 1996.
Awesome
Number
movie.
9, Hoop Dreams, 1994. Was a drama about the 2 players from Chicago and their journey to get to Division I basketball. Number 8, a comedy. Back in 1979, The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh, with Julius Erving playing Moses Guthrie and the comedian Jonathan Winters. Number 7, romantic comedy, Forget Paris, 1995, starring Billy Crystal, and the love interest was Deborah Winger. That was about an NBA referee. And so allegedly they think it's a guy named Ed Middleton. It's about his life story, allegedly. So we don't know that for sure, but it's some of its characteristics. Billy Crystal played in it with Ed Middleton. Number 6, Glory Road, 2006, about the story of 1966 Texas Western University when they won the championship. Now it's called Texas El Paso, about the head coach, Don Haskins. And that was the first time that 5 African-American players as starters won the NCAA championship. Number 5, Coach Carter, starring Samuel L. Jackson, a true story about a high school situation in Richmond, California. Number 4, Hoosiers, 1986. Gene Hackman, who just died about 5 days ago, he played Norman Deal, the legendary coach, and Dennis Hopper was an absolutely tremendous actor. He played as assistant coach. It's about a high school team called in Hickory, Indiana, that won the state championship. Number 3, He Got Game, 1998 drama starring Denzel Washington as Jake Shuttleworth, when his son was played by Ray Allen. His name was Jesus Shuttleworth, about the drama about a family of a basketball player. Number 2, 1994, Blue Chips drama starring Nick Nolte with young Shaquille O'Neal and young Penny Hardaway, about high school recruiting. And number 1, comedy, 1992, White Man Can't Jump.
Great
starring
show.
Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson, about 2 basketball trash-talking hustlers, and the two girlfriends was Tyra Farrell and Rosie Perez. Thus, that's my list of the top 10 basketball movies of all time.
Have you seen? I'm going to give you a couple honorable mentions. Okay.
Sure, of course.
Have you seen Hustle with Adam Sandler?
I did. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I did. That was about a scout. He was a scout, and my colleague Fran Fischella was in that movie also. I did. That was really well done. And Adam Sandler's a huge basketball fan.
And the remake of White Men Can't Jump, did you watch the remake?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay.
Gordy, I enjoyed it.
I went into that and I was just like, these reboots, I don't like these reboots. I thought it was well done. I actually did enjoy the remake. Not quite as much as I enjoyed the original, but still good.
I have a question for you. All right, so not basketball, but in your opinion, what is the best ever sports movie? So not
okay.
basketball, but just generally speaking.
Okay.
Sports movie.
So Remember the Titans, way up there.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Remember the Titans, Field of Dreams, and
Yes.
I'm still a sucker for Rudy, even though we know that Rudy was completely made up and not actually, like, it was heavily dramatized and a lot of that stuff didn't actually happen. Still love Rudy. So those would be probably my top three, and maybe an honorable mention to Days of Thunder. Also great.
Sure.
Man.
Sure. My greatest sports movie was Raging Bull, 1980, starring Robert De Niro, who's portraying Jake LaMotta, this unbelievable fighter, this slug fighter that was world champion. Robert De Niro had him.
There's so many good ones.
As far as movies, Rocky 1.
Yes. Yes. Rocky's so great. Rocky 4. I mean, come on. Gordy, we can't get into this today. There's too much going on in the real sports world. I can't spend too much time on sports movies list. We'll do this another day, okay?
Absolutely. But the Oscars were on Sunday, and that get our interest. We do this every single year, and it's been a fun thing. And so right now, the people listening, ESPN 700, text James Pearce and those guys about as far as your list.
You're the man, Gordy. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Sean. Peace out. Stay well.
Gordy Chiesa, our resident basketball insider. Lots to get to on the Sean O'Connell Show. James, I just got a call. I just got a text. I got to go to the principal's office maybe.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
The folks up on the hill maybe not too excited.
We don't know. We don't know.
Okay.
We don't know.
Hopefully they're okay with us breaking the big news.
We got 2 more hours before I have to face the music anyway. All right? It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show on a Tuesday. It's turned out to be a little bit more eventful than I thought it was going to be. NHL trade deadline approaching. NFL mock drafts are out there. And some little birds started chirping this morning about the potential for a major change, a seismic shift for Utah men's basketball. Multiple sources indicating to me that Alex Jensen intends to return home to his alma mater. I also need to be clear here. No ink is dry. All right? These things aren't done until they're done. You got to get it across the finish line. A big J journalist probably would have needed 5 sources before they actually went with it. I'm not in journalism school. I think it's exactly how it's going to play out. I stand by that. There are things at work here. It is not yet done. It's important for me to say that. The deal is not yet done for Alex Jensen. I believe it is going to get done. I believe it is the right move in the first place, as we have said. I think that it's an indicator of many, many positive things for the athletic department. But the tea leaves are there. The ink being dry on the contract is not yet there.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the nature of things we get when you break news, which we don't do a ton of here on the radio station. We often react to news that's broke, whether nationally or from some other local sources. But in this case, we're the ones breaking the news. When you break the news, it's always the case that it's not official till it's official. You're getting multiple sources, and you're going with it if you trust those sources, and that's the case. That's the case here at ESPN 700 today. Of course, there's other sources who are involved in the hiring process who are not going to necessarily agree with all the sources, but there's enough of them out there that we have gathered, and Sean, you in particular have gathered on this news that we feel more than comfortable bringing it to the air. That's why we brought it to the air. So, but it is important that you note that it's not official till it's official, and we'll get the press release when it is official. But I think that it's safe for people, Utah fans, to get excited at the idea of the Runnin' Ute alumni who was part of the last truly great Runnin' Utes team, the Final Four team in 1998 that got so close to winning a national championship. I think it's more than safe to get excited about the idea of him returning to his alma mater as the head coach of the Runnin' Utes.
I'm excited about it. It hasn't happened yet. I'm going to stay excited about it until if something forces me to walk this back. If, I guess, more accurate breaking news forces me to walk this back, James, I will eat my crow and I will fall on my sword, and I will mea culpa and apologize to whoever I need to apologize to. I feel confident that this is the way it's going to play out. And it is different when you're in the position that I'm in right now. I'm not a columnist. I'm not a beat writer. Excuse me, I shouldn't say I'm not a columnist. I'm a verbal columnist. I'm not a beat writer. I'm not a big J journalist. I'm not an insider necessarily. I feel comfortable with the way that it was sourced. I also feel comfortable in eating the crow if I have to eat the crow.
Yeah,
so,
it's also true. Another thing about breaking news is we've seen, hey, today this is the news. Tomorrow, a week or so later, the news has changed. So as of today, the breaking news is that he's expected to be hired as the next Runnin' Utes head coach. That's Alex Jensen. Obviously, things can happen until the ink's dry. You remember DeAndre Jordan famously, 2016, 2017 offseason was signing with the Dallas Mavericks. They broke that news. But then J.J. Redick, Doc Rivers, and a bunch of other Clippers staked out his hotel room in the next couple of days while they awaited the moratorium to be lifted. And while they did that, or during that time that they did that, they had convinced DeAndre Jordan to go back to the Clippers. The breaking news was still accurate. It just something changed. So, yeah, but that's we trust our sources here. Sean, I know you trust your sources here, so that's why we brought it to the air.
I'm going to operate under the assumption that I'm not incorrect here, because if I had to operate under the assumption that things that I say are incorrect, I just wouldn't be able to speak ever. I would be wrong. I'm wrong so often. This one I hope I'm right about. I think I'm right about. Ink not dry. I'll keep reemphasizing this, but unpacking what it means, and Spence and I touched on this a little bit because we were lucky enough to have him kind of like wandering around the studio, and he was recording an interview actually with Kyle Whittingham, which I assume he's going to be playing on his show either today or tomorrow. Knowing that there's a lot of heavy lifting that has to be done to get the right guy hired, and I think Alex Jensen is the right guy. I think Alex Jensen is the dude that it's going to be hired. I think that if it's not Alex, then you're probably targeting someone like an Andre Miller. Maybe you're targeting a Richard Pitino, whoever it is, okay? This part of the conversation has less to do with Alex and more to do with the requirement for getting the right person in this job. It is not just Mark Harlan being a good negotiator or not that is going to get this done or not get it done. It identifying the right candidate is probably the easiest part of a coaching hire. Finding someone who's like, wow, that's somebody who knows the game, does a great job with player development, has great relationships, we think could be a good recruiter, or we've seen at their previous stops, which is not the case with Alex, but we've seen at previous stops has been a great recruiter. All of that is a reason why it's a big-time job, because that part is the easy part. The difficult stuff comes into play where you make it a compelling offer. The salary has to be right. The timeline has to be right. All indications are for Alex Jensen that the timeline is pretty darn good, because he does not, according to multiple sources, again, he does not have any guarantees from Dallas beyond this season. Now, I don't know what his kind of stance on job security is, but we know that he's a family man. And even though an outside observer like myself can look at it and say, Alex Jensen, if Dallas doesn't want him, somebody else is going to. That's a no-brainer. That's an absolute, like, he will have a job in the NBA forever. Or he'll have a job as an assistant at Utah if they give the job to somebody else, or whatever it is. He'll have a job. He has enough relationships. He has a good enough resume. He's coached great players. Great players have nice things to say about him. He's going to get a job, right? Also, when you're an NBA coach for as many years as he's been an NBA coach, not to be crass about it, but like, you could probably afford not to work for a couple years and still be fine. That's not how these people are driven. That's not how these people necessarily are wired and operate. But Alex Jensen, I'm sure, could get another job. So the timeline for him might not be as obvious as it is for me. But if I don't have a contract next year and my alma mater's calling, my question is not about, hey, can I retain this job? Is it, why should I take that one? I could be a head coach. I could be a head coach at the place I played. I could go back to Salt Lake City, which is a place that I have roots and love, and, you know, people, my family would probably, at least extended family, would probably appreciate this, whatever. So how do you start, if you're the Utah Athletic Department, how do you check these boxes and get this thing close to the finish line, across the finish line, get the ink dry that we're still waiting on? I got to be clear about it. Again, it's back to what we talked about. You have to tell Alex, and you have to convince him, not just tell him, but you have to, like, prove to him that your job at this university is going to be one that is set up for success. That's why this is so exciting, if it's true, and I think it is. Because Alex Jensen doesn't have to leave the NBA to take this job. There's nobody, by the way, who's a candidate for this job who needs this job. Identifying someone as a potential candidate for a University of Utah basketball head coaching job means that they are not someone who's like on the unemployment line. They're not someone who's desperate. You're not hiring that kind of candidate. You're getting someone who's either on the rise or is an obvious previously successful head coach. That's not the case with Alex Jensen. He's been an assistant. It felt at times that it was inevitable he would be a head coach in the NBA. Maybe that's still in the future for him. He's young enough that a solid stint at Utah and maybe a return to the NBA is possible. But the reason this news that sources indicated to me is imminent and coming soon, the reason that it is so compelling for the University of Utah is that it marks a potential shift in the momentum of a program that at one point was the tentpole for the athletic department.
And you could say the tentpole, the flagship for college basketball in this state too, not just at the University of Utah. BYU obviously during the Majerus years had and before that had some really good runs, but they were not at the level of the Runnin' Utes for a long time. The 80s and 90s in particular were the heyday of the Runnin' Utes. The Runnin' Utes, even more so than it was for BYU. So it's not just the tentpole of the athletic department, the flagship, the tentpole of men's college basketball in this state. They were that big a deal. It feels like so long ago, but then it also feels like just barely happened all at the same time. Alex Jensen was part of those teams as a player, and if he can have this, Spence has been great on this earlier in the show today too. If he can have anything close to the recruiting impact that Kevin Young has had as a former highly thought of assistant coach in the NBA, it should be outstanding for the Runnin' Utes' future.
So, for Alex Jensen to come back, you have to tell him, you have to convince him, as we talked about last week, you have to convince him, hey, all of the concerns that not just you, but everyone in college basketball has right now about the reality of competing at an elite level in college basketball, we have something that we believe can address that. Your job is going to be developing players, identifying the talent, and we then will help you, not in that order, by the way, identifying the talent, recruiting them, committing them, and then, of course, you got to retain them, but you got to develop them while they're on the roster. And you look at it and you say, all right, this is a delicate balance. This is something that we can achieve here, and here's why we can achieve that. With you in place, this is why we can achieve that. And he is rooted in reality. This is a guy who's been around the game at the highest level and has been close enough to taking a job like this one in the past that he's also stayed dialed in on the college game, right?
Absolutely. We were having the same conversations around Alex Jensen 4 years ago when Utah decided to hire Craig Smith. And, the reports were back then he wasn't interested in taking a college job, but him being a finalist for a college job it tells you that he has certainly been dialed in enough with the college game just in case he gets another chance at it, and he didn't get an NBA job, which did not happen in the last 4 years.
So for Alex Jensen to be rooted in the reality that he's rooted in and to say, all right, well, I need this, and this, and for Utah basketball to answer those questions to Alex Jensen or to anybody else, they have to have evidence of how it works, right? And maybe Alex Jensen, because it's his alma mater, doesn't have the same requirement that like Kevin Young had when he took a BYU job, because Kevin Young is not as rooted in BYU athletics as Alex Jensen is in Utah athletics, right? So maybe for Kevin Young, and I don't know this is all speculation, but maybe Kevin Young is just like, dude, you really want me to leave the NBA? You got to give me $5 million a year in NIL money. Okay, done. Oh, hello. All right. That's something we can talk about now. Well, you got to give me a top 10 salary in college basketball. Done. Oh, hello.
Got to give me something close that I might get as a head coach in the NBA.
I mean, he's making $5 million a year. He's like the highest paid coach in the Big 12 conference.
Okay, yeah. That you're doing that too. Okay.
So maybe it's not as big of a demand for somebody like Alex Jensen, but it's also not going to be like a hometown discount where like, hey guys, I don't worry about that. I don't worry about NIL money. I'm not concerned about anything like this. What I'm concerned about is making sure you set me up to be successful. It's not going to be like this laissez-faire approach from anybody in this situation. And that's why when this hire gets announced and it's official and the ink is dry, Alex Jensen, who I'm very certain it's going to be, or Andre Miller or whoever, that person has forced the athletic department to check the boxes. And as a fan, unfortunately, you have to care about that now. And that's why, like, when this thing gets across the finish line officially and you get the official release from the Utah Athletic Department or wherever you get your source news, that's why you as a Utah basketball fan are going to heave this sigh of relief that, like, it's not just, we hired somebody. Just, we hired somebody is not the thing. We hired somebody, and what that means is you checked all the boxes, and this athletic department has come through on the promises, on the speculations, on the, what are you going to be in the NIL space? What are you going to be? Like, you have to have answers for those things or else nothing gets done. Lots left to get to on the show. It's been a little derail of things on a Tuesday edition of the Sean O'Connell
The best kind of derailing is breaking news that pertains to University of Utah in particular, but something that pertaining to our local team here.
Part of our Big 12 at noon coverage brought to you by Mountainland Supply. Visit mountainlandsupply.com. All right, Reese Ross. Speaking of Utah basketball, Reese Ross from Utah women's basketball going to join us next. We'll talk buzzer beater with her. She was there, had a much closer look at it than we did. So Reese Ross joins us next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Quick reminder, only one home game left for your Runnin' Utes. Text Utes to 33986 to win a pair of tickets. Their last home game is senior night tomorrow against West Virginia. Tickets also available, senior night tonight, not tomorrow, tonight against West Virginia. Tickets available at utahtickets.com. Utes to 33986. We're lucky enough to be joined by a Runnin' Ute women's basketball player, Reese Ross, giving us a few minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show. Reese, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing awesome. Thanks for giving us some time today. I got to start with this. Utah BYU, overtime, half court, buzzer beater. You're there a lot closer than we were to the action, obviously. What was it like in that moment to be part of this team?
It's a pretty cool experience, and it's even awesomer for Maddie. Just to nobody can really say that they get to do that, make a half-court shot, let alone do it at the collegiate level. So it was a really cool moment for her, and it was just also special to be able to celebrate the seniors that past weekend. So it was just an all-around great experience and super cool to be a part of.
What has your relationship been like with the leaders on this team, with the older gals, the seniors that you just mentioned, and the way that they've helped you develop?
I'm pretty close with a lot of them, especially Jenna Johnson. I'd say she's been such a great role model, and playing the same position, I really look up to her a lot. And it's just nice to have not only an amazing role model as a basketball player, but just as a person. She's an amazing human. She just excels in everything she does. So not only as a basketball player, but just as a person, she's somebody that I really look up to. So it's awesome having great leaders. And obviously I got to give a shout out to Kennedy McQueen. She and I are very close, and I absolutely adore her. She's an amazing person and an even better basketball player. So in my coming in this year, it's been awesome to get to know her, and Nene, love her as well. And Inesh, I live with her. So I just have to give her a shout out as well, just knowing that her and I got a chance to live together and also play together for the past 2 years. So it's been a great experience just to get to know these upperclassmen and share on some unforgettable memories.
Better roommate or better teammate?
You learn a little bit about both of them in different settings. So it's been cool to have Ines to live with. I live with Kyra Evans as well. And so it's cool to live with internationals and just get to kind of see a different side of their lifestyles. And it's also even better when their families come. Inesh's mom came and surprised her for senior night. So it was pretty cool to get to spend a couple of days with her as well.
Reese Ross, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking Utah women's basketball. All right, so tell me what it's been like for you as you've developed in your career and you're getting more minutes and you're finding your role here. To go from high school, and this is not something we even talk about enough on the show. You go from a high school world in which you're the number one recruit in your state, you're a first-team All-State basketball player, you're the star of your team, and then you go to the college ranks, and because you're on a great team and you have great coaches who've recruited great players in front of you, you're not expected to be the star. You're not expected to be the one who carries the team. You're not expected to fill up the bucket. The role changes so drastically when you make this transition. When is the last time in your life, if you can even remember it, where, and I say this in the most positive way possible, you're not immediately the best player on the floor for your team?
I honestly love my role. Coming into college and being able to play with some of the best athletes in the country is just an amazing experience. And I understand coming from South Dakota, the competition is just completely different. So I got a chance to play with some of the best players in the country as well, playing for EYBL out of Minnesota. So I got an experience just to see what it's like to really be a role player and play with girls who are also as good as me. And I've always just kind of had that niche to do the different things. I love rebounding and I love playing defense, and I think that's something that I bring a special gift to my team. I don't need to go out there and score 20, 30 points because everyone on our team is capable of doing that. So if I can just do something a little bit different, I'm willing to do that.
That is one of the things that, I think it's a characteristic of a lot of really good teams, but it's certainly something that has jumped out in watching your team, is that on any given night, it doesn't always have to be Kennedy, doesn't always have to be Gianna, doesn't have to be Jenna, right? It doesn't always have to be one player, one quote-unquote star player. If someone's having an off night, it doesn't mean it's a loss. If someone's having an off night, it doesn't mean even that her minutes are going to be drastically reduced. It just means that the rest of the team kind of has to rise to the occasion, to lift up and fill whatever void is created by someone having an off night or whatever. And again, characteristic of a lot of great teams, but certainly something that appears to be a characteristic of this women's basketball team at Utah. Is that something that's talked about? Is that something that you guys work on in practice, or is that just the nature of how things have played out?
Honestly, it's just the nature of our team. Everybody's capable of going off at any given night, and I think that's why we're a scary team, especially going in the Big 12 tournament. Just being able to have everyone being on the court, being able to score, being able to play defense, being able to get rebounds makes our team really hard to guard, and just makes us unique, which I love being part of things that are unique. And this program is just getting better every year, so it's really cool to be a part of that.
Reese Ross for another couple of minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Utah women's basketball has completed the regular season, and now it is tournament time. What does that mean, Reese? What does that mean for you? Tournament basketball, everything ramps up. Every shot is more important. Every rebound is more important. What does it mean for you?
It just means the intensity is going up just a little bit more, and you can tell in practice and workouts. There's a lot more, not necessarily pressure, but just higher expectations because we've been here before. We know what it's like, and obviously this is my second tournament appearance, and it'll be my second appearance in the NCAA tournament in the next couple weeks. So it's just cool to have that experience moving forward into the next part of the season because those are big games, and I don't think that type of energy, court awareness, and things like that are easily replicated in the regular season. So everything, there's more on the line, and expectations are set higher, and we just hold ourselves to those standards.
How would you characterize the difference between Big 12 basketball and Pac-12 basketball?
I would say there's just a large difference in the physicality. Big 12 is a lot more physical than the Pac-12 was. Pac-12 was more pretty basketball, very skilled players. Everyone could shoot, everyone could score. So I just think the biggest difference would be the physicality.
Does one suit your game better than the other?
Not necessarily. I think they both bring out different sides of me because I love playing physical, but I also like the Pac-12 was pretty cool basketball. I mean, that's part of the reason I chose Utah was because I got to play in the conference champion. So that's a cool experience as well. But I just say both. They have their different niches.
All right, I've asked every one of your teammates who's been kind enough to join me on the show this year, so I'm going to ask you the same question because I'm not going to let you off the hook. A very weird scenario in women's basketball is that, the WNBA cycle and the college cycle are kind of off kilter, which means Lynn Roberts gets an offer in your season. Like it's not an off season. It's not a natural transition time. She gets an offer she can't refuse. We're very proud of Coach, happy for Coach. She did a great job at the University of Utah. No one begrudges her taking a WNBA opportunity, especially one as big as LA. But it's a really unique scenario. And, of course, Gavin Peterson gets elevated from lead assistant to head coach. What was that like for you to go through that change? And I know that you already had a relationship with both of those coaches, not maybe as long-standing as some of the older girls on the team, so your perspective is probably a little bit different as a younger player. But just tell me how that whole thing worked out for you.
Obviously, first and foremost, it was unexpected, but we're really excited for her, and it's such an amazing experience. And just to be a part of, hey, I got coached by someone who's coaching in the WNBA, and it's also cool for connections. She still texts us, and she still keeps in contact with us, and, she doesn't forget about her Utah family, and it's something that she really holds close to her heart. And she does respect all of us, and we respect her and her decision, and it's just been obviously nice that Gavin has been a huge part of my recruiting process. He did most of my recruiting. He really advocated for me to get here. So it wasn't really hard for me to accept the new coaching change just because it was something that I was familiar with. And it's cool to be able to still be coached by a familiar face and not just have some random person come in and try and change a program that already is excelling. And what Lynn has done with the program is amazing. And it just really proves that our program is capable of just continuation of growth and just recruiting not only amazing athletes, but amazing people. So it's been a really up and down roller coaster of a year, and the unexpected. We lost a few coaches this year, but they were replaced by some amazing people. I just have to give a shout out to Morgan Bailey. She's been a great addition, and Jordy's really been one I've held close to my heart, as well as as she was recruiting me as well, and as my role on the team, she really advocates for what I do and just has always been a great person as well. But obviously really happy for Lynn and Coach Rob, and obviously we love having Gavin, and he just keeps pushing us to get better every single day and challenging us not only as basketball players but also as people. So it's been a cool experience to be a part of.
So 20 years ago when I was a college athlete, if you went through a coaching change, if you went through any kind of change on your team or in leadership or whatever, you kind of just had to process it and stick around and be like, all right, well, let's see how this works out for me. If you were going to transfer, you were going to be penalized unless you were already a graduate and things like that. And you're aware of all this already, but it's not the case anymore, right? Like, oftentimes when a coach leaves or coaches get replaced or somebody gets fired or whatever, then the question immediately becomes, well, what about players? What are the players going to do here? Now, again, the timing of this one is a little bit different, and you guys have continued to win, continue to compete at a very high level. You're off to tournament time. But what was the locker room like? What is the locker room like when, familiar faces and people that recruited you to come play and people you have relationships with are like, they're gone, they're moving on, and you have options. You're a highly recruited player. You're still a highly regarded player, and, you can go wherever you want. I know that that's not where your head is at in a season, but is that part of the thought process at all, or the conversation process at all with family, friends, teammates, etc.?
That's a hard one. And obviously it's something on the back of a lot of people's minds just because the transfer portal is so big right now. And it was never really something that crossed my mind because, like I said, Gavin is someone I trust and he has my best intentions at heart. And he's proven that he wants me here for the right reasons, and I don't want to give up on a program that you can't find somewhere else. I feel like the easy option is to hop in the portal and go somewhere else because that's the easy thing to do, and I've never chosen the easy route in life. I feel like just growing up, I've always had thick skin, and I've always persevered through a lot of things, so it's just natural of me to want to stick to my gut and trust that everything happens for a reason. And I'm really advocating for the season, and I'm advocating for Gavin as he got a new opportunity. We just have to understand that this was a big change for us, and it was a big change for him. So there's that common ground of just respect and understanding between coaches and players. And like I said, obviously we lost Judkins and we lost Jarris Freeman, and those are two familiar faces, and it was definitely different at first, but we picked up Ryan Larson, and he's a great addition. He recruited me heavily while he was at Wyoming and had multiple conversations, and I still have every handwritten letter that he sent me in the mail from when he was at Wyoming, but it's awesome to have him here. And Gavin only has the best intentions of all of us and the highest expectations, so I just see this program continuing to grow and just continuing to get better because he does have the experience. He was with Lynn for, 8 years, maybe somewhere around there. And so he's really done an amazing job. Even last year, he had a huge role as an assistant coach. He really honed in on his role, and he accepted it. And I think that's just this is a gift from God that he's been working really hard for this. So it's pretty cool to be a part of that for him as well.
Well, selfishly, we hope that, you decide to stick around, and all indications are pointing in that direction as you guys have a really positive outlook for not only Big 12 basketball tournament, but that, of course, March Madness beyond. Good luck, stay healthy, and we appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Reese Ross, valuable young player for Gavin Peterson, sophomore forward out of Rapid City, South Dakota. And that's probably unfair of me to kind of throw that little curveball at her at the end. I'm not encouraging anyone to look to the transfer portal or to try to, reduce the talent on this roster, obviously. But especially for young players, especially for someone who's kind of at the beginning of the career arc and is not yet a starter, when the coaches that brought you in, or even a coach that brought you in, has moved on, it's a natural reset point in today's world, in today's game. A natural reset point potentially for you to be like, okay, well, that coach loved me. I could have been a starter for her. Now I don't know if Coach Peterson, and she obviously, quiets that discussion by saying she has a lot of trust for Gavin Peterson and stuff. But the transfer portal is what it is, and I appreciate her giving me some candor on that. Utah women's basketball headed to the Big 12 tournament where, look, it's tough sledding in the Big 12 and a physical game that has at times suited this roster and at other times kind of taken its toll. So good luck to Gavin Peterson and his squad. All right, take a break here. We're going to come back. A Puck Lake City playoff push. That's right. Utah Hockey Club chasing a playoff spot. Where are they in the wild card race? We'll update you on that. Also, somebody got a 3-year extension to stay in Salt Lake City. I'll tell you who it is next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Isaac Shade going to join us next to speak a little college basketball, Locked On College Basketball podcast, and we'll keep an eye on Cooper Flagg. We'll take a little look at the bracket, or the brackets, I should say, as it's all projections right now with Isaac Shade. And then Red and Blue with Jerem Jordan at 1:30. Wonder if he has any thoughts on the news that was breaking on the show earlier today. Reports indicating that Alex Jensen, former Utah men's basketball player, will be taking the head coaching job at the University of Utah. When the ink is dry, I will be celebrating on the roof of this building. I'll tell you that, James Peterson. That's all coming up in hour number 3. Right now, a Puck Lake City playoff push update. That's a mouthful, James. Have you decided that's what we're going with officially as the producer of the program?
I mean, it could be one word less, Puck City playoff push, but you want the lake in there, so.
Okay, you know what? We should just do a poll. We should do a poll. I do too many polls on the show anyway. We should do a poll.
Let's do another poll.
Do people like Puck City or Puck Lake City? 877-353-0700. At Real OC Sports.
Does the name of the city have to have a part in the nickname for the city?
In this case,
I'm not sure
yes.
It does. I'm not sure it does.
In this case, the answer
Hockey
is yes.
Town.
We are not.
There's no Detroit in Hockey Town.
That's okay, but we are not Detroit. That's an original 6 franchise. Okay,
that's why we're not. That's why I'm not saying we should be Hockey Town.
They've had hockey since the beginning of Detroit's existence.
We'll let the poll settle it.
Detroit is basically Canada, James. Have you looked at a map?
You're right.
They're
right there, just across the lake.
You go across the river, and you're in Canada. It's Canada. Anyway, Utah Hockey Club news. Breaking. Are we breaking news again today?
Oh,
wow.
This one has an official press release attached to it.
Yes, and that's actually from yesterday. Oli Mata has signed a 3-year contract extension with the Utah Hockey Club. Oli, of course, was part of the Four Nations Challenge, playing for his native Finland. Juuso Välimäki was on that roster, but was a scratch. So Oli Mata had an assist in the Four Nations Challenge, I think on the only goal that Finland had against the United States, if I'm not mistaken. 3-year extension, $10.5 million, according to a person with knowledge of the contract. The person spoke to the Associated Press on the condition of anonymity because financial terms were not announced. So $3.5 million against the salary cap for when the new deal kicks in through 2027, 2028. This is from Bill Armstrong, general manager of Utah Hockey Club. Oli's a smart defenseman and true professional on and off the ice. He's brought stability to our blue line, has tremendous work ethic, and is an excellent role model for our younger players. We look forward to having him as an important part of our core moving forward. Mata is 30 years old. He's played 51 games. He got traded from Detroit in late October. From, James, you want to say it? He got traded from Hockey Town to Puck Lake City?
From Hockey Town to Puck City, yeah.
Puck Lake City. Okay. 2 goals, 12 assists for 14 points, 21 minutes a game. He has been awesome. He's playing arguably the best hockey of his career in a Utah Hockey Club uniform, and he's been rewarded here with a contract extension. By the way, that is one of the poll questions on my Twitter today at Real OC Sports. What would you do if you're Bill Armstrong? Are you trading for a goalkeeper? Are you trading for defense help? Probably don't need to as much now because you've locked up Oli Mata. Are you trading for scoring help on the attack? Or are you doing nothing, which is, of course, one of the options?
Yeah, I'm excited that they decided to re-up Oli Mata. He's been, as Bill Armstrong said, he's been a great addition and when they brought him in earlier this season, and he's really added to the defense side of the ice for Utah Hockey Club, and he's a young guy. He's still got a lot of years ahead of him. That's kind of best of both worlds, as Utah Hockey Club is still in this kind of later stages of their rebuild. OC, that you get someone who's still in their 20s but can contribute now.
All right. As far as the playoff push, here's where it sits right now. Utah Hockey Club with 63 points on the season, 2 back from that playoff picture, from the wild card picture. Flames and Canucks both have 65. Flames get the tiebreaker there. In the Pacific Division, the Blues have 64 points. Utah Hockey Club, 63 points. Right now, according to advanced analytics, and this is where it gets a little bit more sobering, Utah Hockey Club, a 2% chance of being the 7th spot in the wild card picture, a 12% chance of being the number 8 spot. 2% plus 12%, James, equals 14%. Right now, according to the analytics, Utah Hockey Club with a 14% chance to make the playoffs. That, of course, goes up or down based on the performance of this team. And if that is where making sure you have stability on your blue line, which, of course, that Oli Mata signing helps out with, that helps. That aids you in that effort. Hockey right now, this is what's so fascinating for the Utah Hockey Club. Playoff hockey is the thing that you want to watch, all right? Even casual fans are just like, oh, love me some playoff hockey. I don't watch a lot of regular season. Love me some playoff hockey. Effectively, the Utah Hockey Club, from now until the end of the regular season, is playing playoff hockey.
Yeah, this is their playoffs.
It's do or die time. It's do or die basically every night. We had Belle Fraser on the other day, and she talked about the actual numbers. You got to win like 85% of your remaining games. You can only afford, I think the numbers, you can only afford to lose four more contests without mathematically eliminating yourself. That's based on the current performance of the people around you. But this is a big deal for the Utah Hockey Club. You've got to win. I'd get further into this, but we've got to take a break because Isaac Shade has agreed to join us to talk a little college basketball. We'll examine his predictions for the brackets, get his thoughts on the breaking news that Alex Jensen is expected to take the Utah basketball head coaching job. All of that next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
If I'm Cooper Flag,
Go back to Duke. Go back to Duke.
I'm going to go back to Duke or the Jazz, brother. That's
wow, really?
Pelicans. You'll get lost in the sauce with the Saints. Wizards.
What's that? How?
They don't care.
What just happened?
Hornets. We just finished a whole 30-minute segment on them. Utah. Hey man.
Yeah, the camera guy you laughing at.
Listen, Utah, you'll be a hero. You'll fit right in, brother. I'm seeing Jazz. I'm seeing the Jazz.
It makes the most
He's
sense.
seeing it. He's seeing it.
You'll be a hero.
Oh, that's great. DeMarcus Cousins on the Run It Back podcast on the FanDuel Sports Network talking about the best home for Cooper Flag. He says Cooper Flag would be a hero in Utah. I wonder what DeMarcus is telling us he thinks about Utah by making that joke. But he's right. Cooper Flag would be a hero in Utah. Jazz want him. Played his last home game, if I'm not mistaken, at Duke. Right? Joining us to talk about, I guess we will get to some Cooper Flag, all things college basketball. Isaac Shade, good enough to give us some time today. Host of the Locked On College Basketball and Locked On Heels podcasts. Isaac, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great, Sean. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you giving us some time.
Of course.
I think you probably heard the sounder we came in with. DeMarcus, maybe slightly tongue-in-cheek, talking about how Utah would be such a great fit for Cooper Flag. We know why he's probably saying it, but it is true. I mean, this is what the Utah Jazz are trying to tank in order to get this guy. They're not right now. They don't have. I guess they're tied for the highest NBA draft lottery odds. But you've watched plenty of Cooper Flag, and I know we talked about him the last time you were on the air with me. But he's just continued to play great since.
Oh my goodness! His stat line last night was absolutely absurd. I mean, as you were just saying right before you brought me on, his final home game at Duke, it was funny. They were chanting one more year, and he I don't know if you caught it. He looked up at his parents in the crowd and gave it the whirly bird motion, like run it back. And it's like there's no chance in all of God's green goodness that he is or should even entertain coming back. I mean, last night, 28 points on 10 of 16 shooting, 8 boards, 7 assists, 3 blocks, 2 steals. That is absolutely absurd. This National Player of the Year race between he and Auburn's Janai Broome is my favorite Player of the Year race we've had since J.J. Redick and Adam Morrison back in 2006. Dude, it's just so fun, Sean.
Put on your NBA draft Nick hat, and what we do for when the draft is coming up is you find things not to like about players. Well, this is what Cooper Flag needs to fix. This is the thing that could stop him from being a surefire success in the NBA. What is it about Cooper Flag, if you can even come up with something?
I was going to say, if you can figure that out, Sean, I'd love to know. Maybe he could bulk up some. Like I'm literally just nitpicking at the pickiest of nits here. It's funny because in one of the maybe unfair stigmas he's received this year is that in Duke's couple losses, a lot of them have been a late Cooper Flag turnover. Well, guess what, you all? That's what happens when you have the ball in your hands as much as he does, because he leads Duke in points, rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals. And more often than not, Duke is obliterating teams by so much that it doesn't even matter if he turns it over or anyone else at the end of the game. And so I think a lot of people would just maybe based on not a lot of information say, well, he's got to learn to not turn it over at the end of the games. Well, I mean, come on, it's such a small sample size. I don't want to hop on that bandwagon, but legitimately, Sean, your tongue-in-cheekness of if you can find anything is legitimate. Let's remember, this dude is supposed to be a senior in high school right now, and here he is dominating college athletes. We saw what he did last summer as he played against the best USA has to offer. He's the real deal, man. Cooper Flag does it all and doesn't have to be flashy with it. He's going to be an absolute sensation for whoever lands him.
Yeah, there are a lot of people in Salt Lake City that are just desperate to see what he looks like in a Jazz uniform. I'm enough of a conspiracy theorist to believe the NBA is not going to let that happen, but we'll just see how it plays out. You did allude to Auburn and Broome and what they've done so far. That they're right now, Auburn and Duke atop the AP top 25 right now. seemingly kind of in lockstep and two teams that could be destined for a matchup in the tournament, depending on how things play out as we get there. But Auburn, as the number one team in the country, how good are they?
They're insanely good. Let's think about it this way, Sean. The SEC is legitimately historically good, one of the best conferences we've ever seen. There's so much depth, there's so much everything. And yet, Auburn has already clinched the outright regular season championship and is going to do so by multiple games. That's how good this Auburn team is. It has been a thing of beauty to watch. They're consistent. Literally, their only two losses this year, they lost at Duke in the ACC-SEC Challenge by 6 points, if I'm remembering correctly, a game that I think they win on a neutral court. And then they lost a couple of weeks ago at home to Florida, who's a number 1 or 2 seed themselves. This Auburn team, man, has so much that they do so well. Even when Janai Broome missed a couple games, you had Chaney Johnson stepping up. You had other players on this team coming into the Dylan Cardwell as well in the front court for that. You've got a precocious freshman in Tahad Pettiford who does it all. Auburn is stacked, and I would love if we got a Duke-Auburn rematch in the national championship game. They are, to me, the two best teams in the nation, with all apologies to Houston. But please, NCAA Selection Committee, put these teams on opposite sides of the bracket. Do us all a solid.
Let's talk about Houston, who you just offered unnecessary apologies to. That is the class of the Big 12 Conference right now, where, of course, Utah and BYU are plying their trade these days. They're 25-4 this season. They're up to number 3 in the rankings. Is Houston a legitimate national championship contender?
You know what's funny, Sean? I literally just apologized on my show today because about a month ago, I said they weren't. I said the Elite Eight is the ceiling for Houston. Why? Because they don't have a Marcus Sasser or a Jamal Shedd, like an absolute dude that they've had in the backcourt the past couple years. But since, I don't know if LJ Cryer was listening to my show, but since then he's gone nuclear and has really just turned it on. They've got all the pieces. And so I put my hand up today. I said, I stand here a man convicted, offering a mea culpa. Houston is absolutely capable of being the last team standing in college basketball.
We're talking college hoop with Isaac Shade, who's the host of the Locked On College Basketball and Locked On Tar Heels podcasts. So looking at the Big 12 Conference at large, we've seen BYU since our last conversation climb with a couple of big wins. Richie Saunders is absolutely the man down there, which is so funny because, you know, we came into the year talking about Cannon Catchings and what is he going to be, talking about Yegor Dimon as the projected lottery pick, and the curly-headed dude who you could find at any church ball game is the one who is just like carrying BYU right now. It's incredible to see.
It really is. And look, I'm part of the curly hair committee as well, and so I'm all in on what Richie Saunders is doing. It makes me proud of him. But yeah, I mean, 3 of his last 4 games, he's had 20 or more points. I mean, just pouring it in. It's been really, really neat to see BYU come on strong of late. And what I'm really, really intrigued by this game tonight, because Iowa State is back to full strength now. Milan Momcilovic is back. You've got Sean Gilbert is fully back. Curtis Jones is back. And so these are 2, BYU is obviously crazy hot right now. What is it, 6 straight and 10 of the last 12, if I'm thinking correctly. But Iowa State, when they are full strength like this, is to me a legit Final Four type team. And so this game in Ames, Iowa tonight is going to be a lot of fun. But BYU is legit. I love how they've played themselves off the bubble, and I mean that in the good way, like firmly in the tournament. It's really, really neat to see for what Kevin Young has been able to do here in his first year.
When we get to the Sweet 16, I'll keep it at the Sweet 16 for now. How many Big 12 teams do you think we could see there?
Ooh, that question. Obviously, when we always got to give the caveat with the NCAA tournament. It's all about matchups. It's all about anything can happen on any given day because of the one-off nature of this whole thing. Sweet 16-wise, though, man, there's a whole bunch of second weekend teams in this field. I would be shocked if we didn't have 4. I would set it at 4.5 as my over-under, because I feel very, very good about Houston. I feel very good. Same thing I just said about Iowa State is true of Texas Tech. They're getting healthy and under the radar for a lot of people, and Arizona and Iowa State. I feel like Houston, Texas Tech, and Iowa State are the teams I believe in the most. I think Arizona should get to the second weekend, and then the questions become the threesome of BYU, Kansas, and Baylor. If the Cougs can keep doing what they're doing right now, they're absolutely Sweet 16 worthy. Man, Kansas, I am befuddled by how they have fallen apart here. It's crazy to think. So I'll set the over-under at that at 4.5.
How significant is what's happening at St. John's right now under Rick Pitino?
Incredibly significant. St. John's is one of those schools, Sean, that we talk about. College basketball is better when they're good. It's funny. You think about Rick Pitino's former team, the Louisville Cardinals. They've been absolutely miserable the past 2 years. I hated it for Kenny Payne. I hated it for college basketball. But you see the immediate resurgence they've had under Pat Kelsey this year. That's good for college basketball, man. The same is true of St. John's. And I love, I haven't been in New York this year, but, man, people are talking about all over Manhattan how much energy there is on game day when something's going down at MSG with St. John's. It's just further proof of what a phenomenal X's and O's basketball coach Rick Pitino is. Folks, let me just give you a homework assignment. Go look at how teams perform in the second year that he is their head coach. The leap from year one to year two is bonkers. This thing, we've said it now about Houston. We've said it about Auburn, and the same is true of St. John's. They have already clinched the Big East by multiple games. It is something impressive to see.
So the reason I'm asking you on a Salt Lake City radio show about somebody like St. John's is because we get lost a little bit. The Big East is like this strange sort of anomaly. They're not a football conference, right? And so the economics of it is very, very different. And Pitino's of advanced age for a coach at this point. So, you want to say, okay, where's the next step from St. John's? But he's playing his home games at Madison Square Garden. He's an East Coast guy. Is there a next stop for Rick Pitino, or is because they could be a power in Big East basketball, they can keep him there, and that can be enough?
Yeah, that it's the latter of the two, Sean. Rick Pitino's 72 years old. He's home. He's in the Northeast. This is it. He will stay at St. John's until he's either fired or they drag him out dead, right? There is no reason for him to go anywhere else. For those who are more football heads, in college basketball, when Pac-12 was still a thing, we talked about 6 power conferences in college basketball. Now it's 5. We've got the Big 12, we've got the Big 10, the ACC and SEC, and we include the Big East as a power conference in basketball because of how strong they are. But it's confusing because in football, they've literally only got UConn. That's it. That's the only football program. Excuse me. But basketball, man, it's all there. There have even been rumors in the past couple of weeks about maybe the ACC and the Big East having some sort of alignment or agreement down the road. I don't know if that'll happen, but that's the level they're trying to operate in. It's been a little bit odd this year because UConn hasn't lived up to billing. I mean, good grief. What do you expect after back-to-back national championships?
How dare they?
Marquette has been a little right. Come on, Danny Hurley, do better. But seriously, I mean, UConn is trending to be like an 8-9 game right now. So can you imagine, Sean, a second-round game of Duke and UConn in the East region or something? Good grief. How fun would that be? But the Big East, I mean, last year they got 3 teams in the tournament, and they will have at least 4 this year, maybe a 5th with Xavier, and so we'll see. But the Big East is legit, absolutely.
Okay, here's an unfair question for you because we had one of our NBA guys on yesterday, and I was talking about, the draft prospects and things like that. Who is the best player on a bad team right now? Who's the best player that maybe they make the tournament, but his team has no shot of making a real run, no matter how good this guy is? Who's the best player on a bad team?
Well, can I give you 2 on the same team?
Yeah.
Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper.
Okay.
For Rutgers. I mean, it's we've seen this a couple times now. I think back to Ben Simmons at LSU, right? Is just another classic example. There's a bunch of those, but man, there was conversation preseason. People were either all in or all out on Rutgers making the NCAA tournament, and they were definitely a fringe team. coming into things, and these two dudes are wildly legit. But unfortunately, Rutgers just doesn't have it, man. They're 14-15 right now. They're 7-11 overall. Both of these young men are special talents, both lottery picks, like no-brainer lottery picks, and that'll happen. I'll give you one more that is actually a bubble team that might make it in, but I think is on the wrong side of the bubble right now. Is Trey Johnson at Texas. Who I know, Utah and BYU fans won't know as well with Texas moving to the SEC this year. But this dude, man, is the heart and soul of that team. He's so legit. If Texas makes it in, it'll be a short stay, and then they'll go home to Austin. But I guess those are three I'd proffer your way, Sean.
Okay, before I let you go, I think I asked you the same thing the last time we spoke, and you're always welcome to revise such answers because college basketball is incredibly fluid. But as of March 4th, the most likely Cinderella for you is who?
Oof, man, March 4th. I didn't even think about that. Today's like the one day of the year that's a verb. That's pretty fun. Cinderella. How? Give me a seed or lower that you want to go with. How Cinderella are we talking?
11 or lower.
11 or lower. Ooh, that is fun. That's very good. I'm searching my brain for who I want to go with there. Here's who I'm going to give you. Arkansas. This is a team that has all of the talent. They're playing a lot better lately. After they went and beat Kentucky in Rupp, after Boogie Fland went down, who was their most player, it's allowed them to kind of coalesce as a team. We've seen Jonell Davis since then, who is the FAU transfer, really start to shine. I mean, he was a lot of people's preseason pick to be the SEC transfer of the year. He's finally coming on. Arkansas looks a lot better. They laid a flat egg last weekend. They got to get past that. They've been playing a lot better lately, and if they can get in, Coach Cal always has that talent. I think they're a real threat. Another part of what's made them so much better lately is big man Zvonimir Ivicic is really starting to live up to what you saw glimpses of last year in Lexington.
Okay, truly the last thing before I let you go. Multiple sources indicating to me today that Alex Jensen, former Utah basketball star, longtime NBA assistant, is headed back to Salt Lake City to take the head coaching job. Ink not dry on the contract yet, but this thing is going to happen according to all of my trusted hashtag sources. This is who this is the guy they wanted from the beginning. What could this mean for Utah basketball?
I think it could be a great thing, Sean. I mean, look, on a couple levels. Number one, we've seen the other Big 12 team in the state go after an NBA assistant and make that happen this year. And we just talked earlier in the show about how well things are going for BYU right now. So clearly that is a path to success. It also is a big signal to young men that are playing this game of like, hey, this dude has been very successful at the highest level of college basketball. Of basketball in the NBA, and is somebody that knows what to do to help get you there. So I think that is a big thing in terms of recruiting, NIL, transfer portal, all of that kind of stuff. But then it's somebody, because he's been part of this program, that knows what to do. Now, to be fair, we've seen alums come to schools. Sometimes it works really well. We talked about Duke earlier. John Shire is doing very well. Thank you very much at Duke. We've got a couple other examples of that, but then we've got some others where it hasn't gone so well. We talked about St. John's earlier. Chris Mullen, unceremoniously fired. Let's stay in the Big East with Georgetown, right? Like things didn't go there well for Patrick Ewing. Juwan Howard at Michigan, right? So we've seen examples on both sides of that ledger. But I think for Utah, it would be a great thing. I think the connection to Coach Madris is really important for Utah, right? Like that's just foundational for who the Utes are. And so I'm very hopeful that if this happens, if the ink does dry, that it's a massive win for Utah.
Isaac, appreciate your time and your perspective today. We'll get you on again before we actually start this tournament, all right?
I love it. Thanks, Sean. Have a great one, man. Appreciate you.
Isaac Shade, Locked On College Basketball Podcast, Locked On Tar Heels Podcast as well. Big thanks to him. ESPN 792 FM, we've teamed up with Motorsportsland to send you on a UTV excursion along the beautiful Wasatch Mountains. All you've got to do is visit ESPN700sports.com, fill out the entry form to be eligible to win. Contest ends March 12th. You got 8 more days, so enter now. Motorsportsland is sending you on a UTV excursion through the Wasatch. ESPN700sports.com. Enter and win. All right, Red and Blue, a delayed version because normally he joins us at noon. He was busy. Jerem Jordan is going to stop by for some Red and Blue. We'll get his thoughts on the report from me that Alex Jensen is taking the Utah head coaching job. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Time for a little red and blue, checking in on the enemy territory down in Provo with Jerem Jordan, friend of the program, our official BYU insider here on ESPN 700. Jerem, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm not as good as you guys though. Alex Jensen's coming, huh? Let's go.
That's all signs pointing in that direction, although I must emphasize the ink is not yet dry. I think it'll be dry sooner than later. So your thoughts on that? Alex Jensen, the former Ute, back to the old stomping grounds.
Hey, NBA assistant coaches into this state have done a nice job so far. I think it's a good formula. Alex Jensen's a proven very good NBA coach. So I think, obviously as a former player, I think that's a great move. I think that's headed in the right direction for Utah. I hate to see it because I think it's a good move, but no, I think that was the target, right? If we were going to say who's the one guy we can get here, I think Alex Jensen would be at the top of the list. So that's a good move for Utah, and I think there will be some great battles with BYU. I just wonder if he's going to wear a shirt underneath his jersey at the press conference. Probably not, but I would love to see it.
I hope he does for old time's sake.
It's all baggy and stuff.
Yes, the aesthetic back in the 90s, just horrific, just so bad.
No trip.
All right, outside looking in, because we talked about this quite a bit on the show today as well, like getting your guy, whoever that is, and we think it's Alex Jensen, is the right first step. What are the other steps that Utah needs to take in order to be, back where they want to be?
Feels like NIL in this year is massive, right? You got to have the backing of the program. You got to have donors with deep pockets that care, and that helps you get in the door. It's not everything, certainly, but getting the right coach helps. We've seen that combination for BYU of right coach and competitive NIL puts you in a position where you can get some recruits that maybe you've never had. And then you're in the right league to compete with. You're going to get a good net. You're going to get plenty of opportunities to make the tourney. You're going to get a ton of quad one games. Just different, right? In the late 90s, they weren't saying, how many quad 2 wins does Utah have? You just play well in your league, you try and win 20 games, try and win your conference, and then you get in the tourney and try and make a run. And, in the late 90s, Utah was recruiting a bunch of NBA dudes. And we've seen NBA guys come out of the program with Kuzma and Wright and Pirtle over the years. And so it's always been a place where there's been talent. So I'm interested to see what happens next couple of months, next couple of seasons, get a good staff. Like it's probably also on the wish list to get Andre Miller on the staff, which would be quite the boon. And so I'm interested to see the crew that he puts together there. And then we're going to have some great Crimson on Royal battles as we've had the last couple of years. Even if both teams weren't uber competitive in the NCAA tournament or making runs, it's always fun. So I think it's going to be more fun if Utah takes that step forward. And now we're talking about battles that matter in the standings.
What have you added to the water down there in Provo, Jerem? Because this is a red hot BYU Cougars team right now.
Absolutely, it's just a lot of Soda-licious, a lot of sugar cookies. You know how we roll down
yeah,
here.
Yes.
It's been incredible this 6-game streak for BYU, and frankly, kind of the last month. I think it just took a minute for Kevin Young and some of his freshmen and this group together to just figure some things out. We're very impatient as sports fans, right? To, hey, do it now. All these resources being used. Non-conference was not that strong for BYU. They were not challenged a ton. They got into some challenging games, dropped a couple. But once BYU kind of hit its stride in league a little bit after going 2-4 to start, they've been on fire. I would argue second or third hottest team in the league. Houston's the best team in the league by far. They scare me to death still, thinking about BYU against them in a semifinal potentially next week on Friday in Kansas City. But, yeah, BYU's playing great ball. They're spacing the floor great. They're shooting the ball really well. They all have their roles. They've figured it out. Dallin Hall off the bench has been awesome. Yegor Demon's vision and as a passer is one of the best in the country. Shots coming along a little bit, nailed a couple threes against West Virginia. And then Richie Saunders, best player on the team, should be a first-team all-league guy early next week. If not, he's on the second team for sure. And BYU's making the most threes in the league. They're top 12 in the country in efficiency. They've been putting 90-plus up against Kansas and Arizona. And now tonight they have a massive test at Iowa State, which if they win, great. They're the 4 seed, and they get a double bye. If they don't, they're the 5 seed probably. And they'll probably rematch with Iowa State next week anyway. So big couple of games, certainly for the Big 12 standings. And BYU hopes to kind of avoid being in that 8-9 spot. Lenardi has them at 8. ESPN Sean Farnham, Florida State. He feels they're more like a 6 or 7, which I agree with. The way BYU's playing right now, they're not an 8 seed, and if I was one of those 1 seeds, I would not want to see BYU in the second round.
What is your level of anticipation for that Iowa State-BYU matchup tonight? I mean, Iowa State's a really tough team. BYU, like we've just talked about, is as hot as they've been all year, and certainly a test. It's not a friendly road environment for them to be going into. So your general sense of the game.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because last year BYU was up by 14 and blew that lead and lost. The Cougars probably should have won last year. Had a possession down 1 with about 20 seconds left and turned it over. So that was a disappointing loss last year. BYU blew out Iowa State at home. This year's Iowa State team, not as crazy in their ability to turn you over, but this is a very good team, a team that could make a run at a title because they play great defense and they have really good offense too. They're 19-1 with their full roster. The only loss to number 1 Auburn. I mean, they're really good. So now that they have kind of all their guys back, it's going to be a challenge for BYU. But the Cougars have shown, hey, they went to Arizona and won. That means you can go to Iowa State and win. You beat Kansas by 34 as well, and anything's possible here. So the one thing Iowa State's been doing that's been a little weird is they're giving up a high percentage of threes. They're 10th in the league defensively there. BYU's the best shooting team in the league by makes and takes, and then second in percentage. So if BYU can space the floor, do their pick and roll thing, and get downhill and get some buckets, which they did against West Virginia. West Virginia said, we're just going to stick on your shooters on the edges as BYU tries to get flat. They run 2 to the corner a lot. Then BYU, if they need to go 2-on-1 in the pick and roll and get some buckets with Foose at the rim, which is what they did, that works too. BYU won a different kind of game. They didn't just – it's really easy to say, just make a bunch of threes. But BYU can win a couple different ways. So I'm interested to see how they do on the road. That Arizona, BYU shut the lights out, and that put them in position to win.
I suppose it doesn't have to be one or the other, but is BYU's passing proficiency, is that a Kevin Young staple that you expect to be part of this program moving forward, or is that more a product of these players and this collection of guys?
I think Kevin emphasized that. He talks about assist percentage quite a bit, and BYU's been in the kind of 60% plus range quite a bit. It also helps that you have arguably the best passer in college basketball in Diego Demon. 6'9", can see over the defense, great vision, unselfish nature. And when you run 11 deep, like, you're expecting everybody to contribute. If you're going to play that many guys, you come in, you make a couple of plays here and there, and people love you. Like, Trey Stewart doesn't play a ton of minutes, but he plays great defense, and he knocks down open threes when he gets the chance. And so Dallin Hall in the pick and roll, Yegor Demon, it's been fun to see these guys share the ball. And when you know that the dude next to you is as capable as you are of knocking down a shot, you're willing to make that extra pass, and BYU's done a great job with that.
4 more days until the special Cougar Tail flavor is rolled out against the University of Utah. Are they pre-selling these things? Right. What's the, like?
No.
Wow.
No, just fresh stuff Saturday, keeping that batter warm or cool. I don't know how it works.
I don't either.
Royal blueberry. Tasted it myself. Delicious. Can't wait to have it for BYU and Utah on Saturday. It's great.
Football question with Jerem Jordan here, our BYU insider for some red and blue. I asked you how you thought Tyler Batty was going to perform at the NFL Scouting Combine, and he did a great job. I don't know if you read his NFL draft profile. It was a lot of what you expect for like a guy who's 25 years old going into his rookie season, but he showed his athleticism at the very least. Do you think he made himself a little bit of money, or hopefully got himself into the draft?
I think he did, absolutely. Which randomly, I was in Indianapolis calling some Utah Warriors rugby over the weekend. So I walked into the hotel where everybody was, the JW Marriott there. The sun dropped there. David Spade walked right in front of me, and I was like, man, he's looking old.
Wait, why was David Spade there?
I have no idea, but like an hour or two later, he was on NFL Network. I was at the Combine. I was like, oh, that's cool. By the way, dipped into Lucas Oil, just check it out. Cool environment. Fun to be in there. You'd think it'd be a little stale and whatnot, but it was awesome. Like that city knows how to host it. Then at the hotel, I saw Sean Payton in the lobby, and I was gonna maybe mention something about, hey, pick up Taysom Hill already, but I don't want to be that guy. But also, I ran by the Starbucks in the hotel where the famous kind of encounter happened with Ian Rapoport and the Fox guy. I was like, oh, the scene of the crime. I'm in the right spot.
Uh-oh.
Anyway,
Breaking news. Jerem Jordan went to a Starbucks for what, Jerem? Come on.
They have chocolate. Hot chocolate.
All right, okay.
Medicine ball. Have you ever had that when you have a sore throat? It's like a lemon honey citrus tea.
Oh, I've
It's
never
really
had
good.
that. Sounds good.
Check it out. Yeah, that's unpaid advertising, I guess. Okay, back to Tyler Batty. There is a thing called relative athletic score.
Yes.
And out of 10, Tyler Batty got an 8.88. I think he did pretty well. He graded out well in the bench, had 27 reps there. His broad jump was pretty good as well. What wasn't particularly great in the shuttle per se, although the end, I don't know. Do you need that? I think he did a good job. I think he put himself in position to be a late round guy, maybe a priority free agent. But I think he did a good job, all things considered. I talked to him a little bit. He said he was happy with that win.
What would be your best test at the NFL Scouting Combine?
For what? Information recall?
No. You got to do 225 for max reps. Okay.
Oh my God.
You could do your vertical jump. I bet you can jump. You know, the shuttle,
you seen me?
whatever.
No, I am not. I am not in this for the athletics. I am in this for the talking part. No. A couple years ago, though, it was funny on BYU Sports Nation. Harvey Unger ran a 40 and didn't have a particularly great time. It was like a 4.9. Like, this is later in Harvey's time. He's kind of practice squad guy. I think it might have even been after BYU or something, and it came up that maybe it was even 5.1 or something, and he didn't warm up. I don't know. But Spencer Lynn said, hey, I could beat that. I could run, a sub 540. And I was like, no, you can't. No way. So we actually did it, and he felt like he was close, but it was like a 5.1. And I was like, dude, I watched these D linemen and these O linemen. I'm like, these guys are all faster than me. Like, even at that weight, even with the quick twitch and whatnot, like, I don't care who you are. The athleticism of these guys, no matter what the position, except for maybe punter and kicker, unless your name's Ryan Rico and you're 6'6", these guys are unbelievable. Like, I respect it. I tip the hat. I could beat Rich Eisen. I know that. But, like, everybody else, no way. Come on.
The other thing that people don't really appreciate is how much your age and slovenly nature, as you become, like, I don't know, a media person instead of an athlete, how much that reduces your ability to perform. Like, I remember, this is years ago. This is like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. And so I was still fighting. So I was still working out very consistently, but not doing the same type of calisthenic training and explosiveness training, obviously, that you do as a football player. And we were doing a broadcast at an orthopedic specialty hospital that has like the vertical jump testing and all that kind of stuff. And my co-host, Brian Swinney, shout out to you, was just like, I guarantee I could out-jump you. And I'm like, no, you can't. I had a pretty good – I know it doesn't look like it because of how I'm built, but I had a pretty good vertical. I had like a 30-inch vertical, which is pretty solid for someone my size. I was like, I had a 30-inch vertical. We can do this, and I will beat you.
That's awesome.
He's like, there's no way. There's no way. I'm like, no, we're going to do it. And so, the place was like, yeah, go ahead. We'll put the little measuring sticks out there, and you can go ahead and jump. And so I'm like, okay, it's been – at that point it had been, 12 years since I'd been in college. I'm like, all right, if my best was like a 30, then I'm probably going to get like a 28 right now. Jerem, I jumped twice. The first one I got 23, and the second one I got 24. And I was just like, oh, that is so bad.
Sounds like my ACT.
I was just because I'm older, and I wasn't even old yet. I was like, man. So all of us that are sitting there watching, I bring that up to the point is when you're watching someone run a 5 flat, like the story you just told, that's actually a hell of a lot faster than people think it is.
Oh, my gosh. Like, yes, if you got out there and like, dude, I could blow away this guard from Wisconsin. No, you can't.
You can't.
Sorry.
You just can't.
There's some of you listening that could, but it's not too many. I respect what and that's part of the reason we love sports. Like the sacrifice and the effort required to be great. We watch Utah. We watch BYU play. Like these kids are working so hard.
Okay.
And it's appreciated, right? And that's part of the reason you pay so much money, I guess. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Is you're watch a great performance. Like my wife and daughter went to Les Mis on Sunday. You pay a pretty penny to go to Eccles and see it, but it's worth it. Like, it's amazing. The show, the performance, the preparation, the execution. That's what sports are great. We love the sacrifice physically, mentally, emotionally that these people do for us, and it's for our entertainment. And I appreciate it. Very awesome.
Okay, I can't let you go until I say this because you brought him up. You saw David Spade at the Combine, all right?
Yeah, he's looking old.
My wife has like a weird, very weird celebrity crush on David Spade.
That's a weird one, yeah.
Does that say – is that a stronger negative indication towards her for having bad taste or towards me because someone who's attracted to David Spade also at least presumably is attracted to me?
I don't know your wife. I don't want to make fun of that, but it is weird.
It's a weird one, dude.
He's funny. I wanted to like quote Black Sheep or SNL to him, and I was like, no, don't be that guy. I'm telling you all the intrusive thoughts I had.
That's great.
But yeah, Road, rude. Yeah, yeah, all of that. I love it. David Spade's an all-timer. And fresh off the heels of SNL 50, I was like, oh, here's one of the old-timers.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I always appreciate your time. Thanks very much, and we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it, man.
Jerem Jordan, our Red and Blue insider. That is the Red and Blue segment where we take a look behind the enemy lines and talk a little BYU. Cougars are on the road against Iowa State, the 10th-ranked Iowa State Cyclones. So ranked versus ranked in college basketball tonight. That is available on ESPN 2 on your old television. And then, of course, they'll wrap up their season with a home game against the University of Utah, looking for revenge there.
Utah looking for a sweep.
Season sweep
on Saturday.
Season sweep.
How great would that be?
What a walk-off that would be for Josh Eilert. Just be like, peace, baby.
How great would that be with how somewhat it's hard to say this season has been a disappointment for the Running Utes because they're outperforming their preseason expectation.
Yeah.
It's just seems to always be a disappointment when they're not close to the tournament on the Hill. But how great would that be? You probably, I mean, no way it gets you that close to the tournament, but you beat a ranked BYU team, and that team ends up being not only at the Marriott Center, but ends up finishing off a season sweep. I mean, that's the ultimate consolation prize in this OC when you sweep your rival. Absolutely. And look, BYU's probably going to win. We're not under any illusions that I'm not under any illusions.
That's what they said last time.
Yeah, I'm not under any illusions that BYU shouldn't be favored in this game. I'll put it that way. But, I mean, Utah got up for BYU at the Huntsman Center earlier this season. Who's to say they can't do it at the Marriott Center on Saturday?
All right, we got to take a break here. We'll wrap up the Sean O'Connell Show by giving away some Offspring tickets with a trivia question and catching up with Spence Checketts as he gets ready for the drive. You're listening to Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Topical trivia for Offspring tickets. 2 tickets to the Offspring September 6th at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. Reported today that Alex Jensen expected to return to the University of Utah as head coach. If you could tell me where Alex Jensen got his first opportunity, what country he got his first opportunity as a professional basketball player. Where was his first professional posting in pro basketball? Hint, not the United States. Tell me the country, 877-353-0700 for 2 tickets to the Offspring. Time now for some crosstalk with Spence Checketts, brought to you by the Burt Brothers. Spring into savings. Get your car ready for the season. They've got $69 tires. They got $50 off service tickets, $79 alignments if you purchase 2 or more tires. Do not wait. The deals don't last forever. Stop by your nearest Burt Brothers today. Burt Brothers does it better. Spence Checketts and the driver coming up next. Hello, sir.
Sean, how are you? Happy Tuesday.
Yes, happy Tuesday. I feel very happy this Tuesday because, I'm a big J journalist. I'm a big guy.
I know you are.
Hashtag sources.
We need one on the station.
Got to have one person who's sourced well.
For sure.
No, look, all reports, all signs indicating that Alex Jensen, the guy that was the number 1 target of the search, is expected to officially sign and take this job. I'm confident that that's where this is headed and this is what's going to happen. Went with it and had a little bit of fun. You happened to be here in studio. We talked about it already, but that was a couple hours ago. Any further fleshed out thoughts?
Well, I mean, look, I don't know how much COVID had to do with this because I think it's always been this way. But in this modern day and age, whether it's, professional basketball or on the college level, when the actual team or the actual property does not break their story first, they have a tendency of being a little sensitive when it comes to news that is out there. And that's why whenever I hear anything, I'm always a little skeptical about whether or not I'm being used because I've been burned that way in the past before. So I believe this is inevitable. I believe the sourcing that is behind the report and everybody that has reported on this search, whether it's the national guys with the John Rothstein or the ESPN national guys or the local guys with boots on the ground, indicate that Alex is the guy. And so is there a contract signed today? Probably not, because if there were, we would have heard an announcement. I'm curious to see how Utah handles this, how the athletic department handles this, because you have this situation where you have a team that's still playing basketball and you have a coach in Josh Eilert who's doing the best he can as an interim. So do you want to sit on it out of respect for him? My preference would be you announce it as soon as you have it done, because there are, we talked about this yesterday on the show quite a bit. There are players that are currently deciding whether or not they want to play at Utah next year. And I would imagine an announcement, if we play a little hypothetical game that Alex Smith is your next head coach for Utah men's basketball and Andre Miller is his lead assistant, whatever else the bench looks like, I think it would have a galvanizing effect right away. I really do. And so, my hope is we hear an announcement sooner rather than later, because I think that's the best thing for the program. But as we talked about when I sat with you earlier, I thought you did a good job of outlining why this is good news for simply fans of Utah athletics. Because no matter who the coach is, they definitely are going to kick the tires on what the infrastructure of the program is right now. And the fact that they could get, if Alex was their number 1 choice and they went high speed after him and every question he had was answered, it's nothing but good news. Not just for basketball fans, but for fans of Utah athletics for sure.
Yes, we will have your updates as the story progresses, but what is expected is that Alex Jensen is going to be the head coach for Utah men's basketball, and that is a very, very positive sign. And his first professional opportunity was in Turkey, the country of Turkey.
Yes, indeed. Yes, it was. Good knowledge. G League Coach of the Year Smitty did a really good job last week of outlining just how hard it is to coach in the G League. I mean, essentially, it's like as you were rising up the ranks as a fighter. You didn't want to be in the lower levels. You didn't want to be in the lower leagues. That's the path you had to take. Literally nobody who's in the G League wants to be there. No player, no coach, no front office executive, no broadcaster. Everybody is in that space with the desire of earning their way up to the big leagues. So the fact that Alex was able to win a G League championship and coach, a team to the point where he was recognized as the best coach in that league is no small feat. And he's really prepared for this. His entire coaching life, everybody talks about Rick Majerus. He's not going to take the job. He's not around anymore. The closest thing to Rick is Alex because he coached with him. He knows the state. He's got a great family. His wife rules. They're really good people. And, once this thing kind of goes down and the announcement is hired, I'm really curious to see what the reaction is from the community.
The other thing about it is, we and I'm guilty of this, we talk so much about how NIL is what's going to, fix your future for Utah basketball and how facilities and like the transfer portal and all this stuff. You also need someone who can teach basketball.
100%.
Because you're getting a bunch of talented dudes, whether it's international or it's local AAU guys, high school players, whatever, that still need to learn basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex is a really good teacher of basketball. He's a great basketball mind, and he can articulate that to players in such a way that they're able to improve how they play on the floor. That's been a staple of his career, and that's part of what made him a good G League coach. And so having all of the other things, all the bells and whistles are important, but having a basketball guy that can convey what it means to be a Utah basketball player, that is so crucial, and I have no doubt that he'll be the best at that.
And who has a proven track record. And the other thing he can do, and, Kevin Young has leaned into this approach. I always go back to the old John Calipari line when he was asked before a game, how many pros do you have on your roster? And he said, I have 12. Go ask them. Go ask them right now in the locker room. I got 12. They all think they're going pro. But it just is a massive benefit to be able to sit in a living room with a father that probably thinks his kid is a pro anyway, and parents that are very bullish on the future of their young man and say, look, I know how to do this. I know how to develop players. I did it with Gobert. I did it with Mitchell. I did it with Doncic. I did it with Kyrie, Clay, Thompson. I mean, Kevin Young coached a lot of great players. Alex Jensen has a list that can match Kevin's. So if Kevin's going to lean into this thing, and he clearly has, every time he has a mic, he's talking about his NBA experience, and I get it, and it's worked, I think Alex has to take the very same approach.
What's coming up on the drive?
More of this. The Jazz got dog-walked by the Pistons last night. It's a big night in college hoops. We are going to have Coach Witt on the show tomorrow, and so we'll do a little college football. Utah's going to have a spring game this year. I don't know if this is something this might be the last spring game for the Utes. I'll just say that. So we'll discuss it. We'll talk about it. We'll do some college football. But, of course, we'll react to the news that you reported earlier. Alex Jensen, hopefully in the next week or so, we'll hear an announcement that he's Utah's next head basketball coach.
Stay tuned for the drive. Thanks to everybody who listened today. Thanks to everyone who joined me on the show today. And thank you, #sources, for giving us some information to drive a big portion of the show. You're listening to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.